It is now September 11th, 2009. We're in the den of the Mark and Nancy Haley home. Mike Robinson, a longtime community activist, a member of United Way of Pierce County. Mark Haley, a longtime community volunteer, are here talking with William Fawcett Lincoln. Bill Lincoln came to this community, he'll get into it, but about 4 or 5 years ago.
25 years ago.
25 years ago to Tacoma? Oh my word. So there you go. 25 years ago from the East Coast. And we are here to talk to Bill about his background and his path to where he is now and his vision for putting together a program at the university level, at the University of Washington Tacoma branch, on a conflict resolution. So that's kind of a beginning. Is that okay? Did you pick that up?
Mm-hmm.
Good. Anything you want to add to that preamble? Setting the stage?
Just right. The dream has been in place for 7 or 8 years.
Correct.
And these talks reflect an attempt to work with what you consider the premium partner for this effort. But the concept is old, or relatively old. It's not fresh, brand new. It just hasn't been born yet in the active sense. It's been waiting to be born, and Bill is its primary dreamer.
Yeah, good. And what I'd like to concentrate on, Bill, is getting more information about your background. I'd like to understand a little bit about, I know you were born in the Boston area and raised there. I'd like to know about your formative years, and then how you moved into, I believe you went to the Divinity School, and what took you to New York, and then what brought you back to New England, et cetera, and then you'll take on the story from there, and how you got into conflict resolution.
Well, I'll do that as quickly as I can.
Yeah.
But, one thing I will not forget is that being raised is that my father just absolutely hated the word toleration. He thought it was putting up with. It's the first time it was years before I heard it again, that he was talking about celebrating diversity, not tolerating diversity and stuff like that. And lasting impact on me on that. A lot of great memories, but that's one of the great lessons that I learned.
Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in terms of both Arlington, Massachusetts, Lexington, Massachusetts, Dennis, Cape Cod, and spent a lot of time on Cape Cod. And I really regard Cape Cod as my home because I've spent a lot of time there, and even in my adult years on that. And all my kids were born in Cape Cod.
And what kind of did you have siblings? Were you an only child?
I had an older brother and a younger brother.
And you were all raised together in this family? And
absolutely. Grandfathers and grandmothers just a few miles away, that kind of situation.
Down in the Southern Cape?
Well, there they lived in the greater Boston area, but on the Cape we lived in South Dennis and 6A area.
And then you went through high school?
I graduated from Arlington High School, was not ready for college. Decided I wanted to worked in a factory 3 at night to 3 in the afternoon to 3 in the morning, and I remember when I was almost 21 at exactly 3:14 in the morning, I just punched out and I said, the hell with this. And I was told, hey, what are you doing? You can't do that. And I couldn't even laugh. I just did. I am going to college. And I found a school that I couldn't go to Boston University because they wanted $500 a semester tuition, and who could afford that? And so I looked for accredited colleges and found a nice college in Indiana, and they only wanted $540 for the entire year in tuition. Went through that in 3 years, became head of the student body. Then
and what did you major in?
I majored in sociology and psychology, and for why I have no idea. And then I went to Colgate Rochester Divinity School and thought I am going to get killed up here because everybody's from Harvard and Stanford and everything else. And I was just absolutely shocked in terms of how well my little school had prepared me for graduate school competing with those other students.
What drew you to Divinity School?
Probably a spiritual journey, but already I was interested in Walter Roshan's book and lessons in terms called the Social Gospel, and his whole thing was doing good works and stuff. So when I went to divinity school, I only took one New Testament course that was required. I only took one Old Testament course that was required, and my rest of the stuff was just in terms of social ethics and some course at the University of Rochester. And I refused ordination because I felt that the people that a lot of the clergy I saw, I did not want to be like them at all. And the ones that I really respected and admired, I thought I could never be like them. And so there I was caught in the middle. And did all my work working with Saul Alinsky in community organization in Rochester, New York. And one day...
Saul who?
Alinsky, a great community organizer out of Chicago. And he was working with the Fight organization, a black organization, and I was working with as well. And I said to him one day, now that the black community is so strong, and, that if we could ever bring the black community and the white community together, this would be a hell of a town. And, there's a book written about Rochester many, many years ago. It was called Smugtown, USA. And so anyway, I thought, we could bring them together. What a great thing that would be. And he said, that's not my job. I said, well, it's somebody's job. He said, maybe it's your job. And I thought, whoa.
How old were you?
I was then maybe 24, 25, so I also was a little upset with all the alienation that we were causing in the community to get things done, to move social action, humiliating the mayor, costing people their jobs by making disclosures. We were really blackmailing some slumlords and stuff. We really were, not for money, but either you resign your post from city council or we're already set to print, and I just get tired of that, anyway, and then I got called in by the American Arbitration Association. They said, we've checked with the black community, the Hispanic community, and the labor community, and blah, 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 and they all picked the same person as the one that could you could convene the community together to deal with this big desegregation mess that we got in Rochester.
Now, time out. How long had you been working in the community, involved in these before they kind of called you for that one job?
Was
it
it
2
actually,
years, a
actually, I
year?
graduated. Well, hold on. Now, I graduated from college in '64, so I had to be older with the Alinsky thing because then I started working with Alinsky when I was 26 and 27, 28. I had worked a couple of riots out in the.
When you say worked riots,
Yeah,
you were
absolutely.
selling popsicles.
And no, I was. That we had the National Guard was called out, and we got these young kids with a gun every 30 feet in front of a storefront in a ghetto at night, and lights have been shut out, and they're scared stiff. And I am going down the street, having a cigarette with them, and and talking to them, and going to the next one, and talking to them a little bit, and and spending some time with them, and he said, my mother's going to be worried stiff. What's your mother's number? Call their mother, stuff like that. It was just great, to do. To me, it was ministry,
And these were 2 riots or 3 riots?
there were 2 riots we had there.
With the summer of '68, the hot summer.
And then now that we had another one, it might have been '70 or whatever, but there was another one that was bad. And I remember distinctly in terms of the second riot that the cops they didn't have their badges. They took their badges off. They didn't wear their hats. They covered not all the cops, but then they covered the numbers on their police cars, so you couldn't identify them anyway at all, And they were going down the street in a wedge, even going on porches, and hitting people, smacking them, so they would go into their house. It was just horrible. And I said, okay, enough's enough of this. And I jumped on a car and I ripped off the numbers on the police car so that the news media, if they wanted, could zero and get the number. And I knocked off these dark glasses that this cop was wearing. And I got taken down to the police station, and I ripped off my shirt, and and showing the crowd, look, I have no scars, no marks, nothing wrong, right? And I got in the police wagon, and they're all black kids, and they're calling the cops, you MF this, like, and I said, you guys are stupid. You are absolutely stupid, And when they pulled up the paddy wagon in front of the station and stuff, I still had my shirt off, and I just said, look, no scars. I got no scars, no marks. I know that, And they're still mouthing people off, and I wasn't booked or anything. I was let out real fast, but it did cause some commotion in the fact that we can't expose these police officers who are not acting at all the way they should, or way that most of the police force wanted them to act. They wanted to act responsibly, not like that, Only takes one bad cop to screw up the whole department in terms of credibility.
Sure.
So,
So now you were paid by what organization?
I
You were
was
working-
paid by the ecumenical ministry. They called me an urban chaplain, and it was Brown Square, which was then a very diverse community, pretty poor. It was basically in terms of an Italian community that had been slowly going through transition with blacks and Hispanics and poverty on that, and it was a couple of blocks from Lake Avenue Baptist Church, which was a big church, my church that I belonged to, and filled with Kodak executives and Xerox executives, and they decided that they would stay in the city and not move out, and I was funded by them to do community organization work. Anything from bail funds in the middle of the night to working for community development, working against slumlords.
So you were really a community activist.
Community activist, community organizer.
But coming out of divinity school, and was this
Yeah.
a Catholic divinity school? Was it
No,
Episcopalian?
it became the Colgate Rogers Theological Center, and St. Bernard's Catholic Seminary joined it, and Crozier, Martin Luther King's alma mater, they joined it.
So it really was ecumenical.
It really was, and I didn't do any evangelical stuff in my ministry. I had my black shirt with my peace medal on, and I had my collar stuck in my pocket so people know I was ministry. Most people thought I was a Catholic priest and stuff. I got called out to do last rites and things of that sort because the priest would not come out to do those things. He just wouldn't do it, and wasn't trained to do it. It was an older man, and it was not the community that he had
You
served.
had grown up Catholic in Boston?
No, we have mixed family, in terms of aunts and uncles and everything else and stuff like that. And so several people became Episcopalian, which they call Catholic Light, or they call it Catholics who flunk Latin because still the mass was in Latin, that. And then I turned to be an American Baptist, and which is a very liberal, progressive wing of the Baptists. And my father said, "How could you become a Baptist?" And I said, "I read the Bible. I had no choice," which just kind of cracked him up, And I had a good sense of humor.
Okay, so you were working. You were
Yeah.
working as an ecumenical lay minister, if you will.
Yeah.
And you were working in the community,
Yeah.
and then you went through these riots and these seriously difficult times, tensions in the community, and clearly you had an ability, you brought an ability with you that somehow calmed people or allowed people to communicate with one another.
I had nothing. I have no idea what I was doing. I was not trained in this stuff at all. It's just like when people say, "Why are you going to the airport in a snowstorm?" It's because that's where you catch airplanes. That's why. And people say, "Where are we going?" I say, "There's a riot down there. There must be something we can do." Like, well, shouldn't we think about it? Yeah, when we get there, we can think about it. Right now, we're just thinking in a vacuum, And so it was that kind of situation. And
What is it in your background that made you do? You know how Sartre says, "I am because I do." Instead of "I am because I think," or "I think therefore I am," Sartre was "I do therefore I am." I mean, you clearly, there's something in you that compels you to be involved and get involved and do things as opposed to just sitting back and contemplating.
I used to walk over. It's probably
Your parents, is it?
Parents certainly, but Hillo. I used to go over to Hillo House at Boston University just for a little break. Like someday I'll go to college. Someday I'll go to college. And the first time I came across those words, if not me, who? If not now, when?
Yeah.
That's something that drove me. I think probably more than anything else. Just, you remember some mottos like make the best better in 4-H or be prepared, That's one that I remember very
And
much
you were
so.
how old when you heard that?
Oh, there, I was probably 18, 19, 20 when I was doing that. Yeah, just to me
Okay.
it was very poetic, very prosaic, and very meaningful.
Sure.
Yeah.
So here you are. You're in the middle of Rochester. You're performing this ministry, and you are called. All these different groups in the community said the only person who can really bring us together.
I got a call from the American Arbitration Association. They went through desegregation, riots all over the place, really bad, and American Arbitration called up and
And they were based where?
D.C. It was called the National Center for CRD. I don't know. It's part of the American Arbitration Association, the National Center for Dispute Settlement, and I got a call, and they said that they've been asked by the school board to come in and mediate this situation. And
The Rochester School Board.
yeah, and I said I don't know if we need a mediator. I mean, you're outside. Where are you from, D.C.? Why the hell would we need you here? I mean, that was my thought. And they said, well, let's finish this conversation, Bill. We said somebody's got to. They're not going to come for us. Somebody's got to convene the community. So we called up the black leaders from a couple of organizations. We called up a real rightist organization like Save Our School and several of those kind of organizations, and SOS and Hispanic community and stuff. And they all said, well, Bill, we'd come for Bill. We're not going to come for you, but we'll come from Bill. What do you think? I said, yeah, I'd had no trouble convening them. I could get them all here at the table, but if it's going to be
How
exploratory.
did you make inroads into those different communities so that you became the trusted common denominator?
Some of them I met during riots. They were lasting friendships because when a cop was leaning down with his gun and said move, and I had my back to it, and I'm like, what? And these 4 or 5 kids were on the corner, and I went to the cop, and I, with my hands up, I always had even if a cop stops me now and he says, I want to see your license, I said, if it's nice, please flash a light on there. Well, no, please, I won't open my glove compartment unless they flash the light. I want to make sure they don't say I'm taking anything out, And I just put my hands up. I said, oh, come on, wait a minute, like that. I mean, give these kids, just give them a chance, like that. And I got right up to the cop, and these kids just ran off, and you could see look in the cop's eyes, like not that he wanted to shoot them, but you just interfered with the law. What's kind of the situation, and which I was supposed to do as far as I was concerned. And other times, like other people have done this too, but to remind kids, you're about to throw a Molotov cocktail into this little store here. The only people who give your mother's credit until the welfare check comes through again. Okay, why are you going to do that? And where should we throw it? I said, I'm not going to tell you where to throw it. I'm telling you where you shouldn't throw it. So a lot of that stuff, and it built up.
But what about
good
the right-wing
relationships.
community? What about the conservative side? How did they trust you?
I think more than anything else, because I did have to sit down with them on different occasions, and I think it was humor more than anything else. I mean, I joked with them a lot, and I remember one time this woman's name was Urbanus, and she served me coffee, and she was really upset about some stuff that was going on in the community, and she said, and I like you, but I'm really against what you're trying to do, and she served me some coffee, and I said, you really have trouble with me, right? And I shoved the coffee over her. I said, do you want to take a taste of this first? And she just laughed. And so crazy little stuff like that, And they, if they like you, it's a big difference.
Sure.
I mean, look at The Odd Couple in terms of Kennedy and Hatch. I'm just unbelievable, And so I had one rule. I said, you can come and do your presentation, and then you got to leave. You got to leave. In fact, I'm gonna leave. Just go outside, The community's going to make up their mind whether they want you or not.
This is the arbitration.
So I brought everybody, 22 parties at the table. Not people, 22 parties at the table. And I didn't know anything about mediation in a formal sense. And I told them, I said, hey, it's up to you guys, And if you want to go forward, they explained what it was and stuff. And we were out, and I wasn't even a part of the decision. We were out in the ante room for about 25 or 30 minutes, and got called in, and they said they wanted to go through mediation, and I said, guess you guys were successful. They went, whoa, you got to be our point man up here. You got to do the convening. You got to handle the administration. I mean, they're coming for you. I said, I'm over my head. I mean, I don't know. So So
And this was the central point on this. Excuse me for interrupting. Was school desegregation,
school desegregation, and we
and this
got,
would have been in the late '60s,
no, this would have been in the early 70s,
70, 71.
72,
about the same time that it was going on in Boston and elsewhere.
Yeah. Well, before Boston, but anyway, we put the emphasis on two things: public safety for teachers, for kids, for parents, and quality education. And with all their issues, we shrunk them down into two categories. And we got a settlement after about 6 months, and I was one of the people who said, look, let's not sign anything. If this doesn't hold up for 48 hours or a week, what good was it? And a couple of days went by, and I had a call up D.C., and I said, we got a problem with the settlement. And I said, well, there may be an I to cross or T to dot, and I said, no, it's worse than that. I said, the head of he went out for a snowmobile, and he went through Honeoye Lake, and he went through the ice. He drowned in his snowmobile. They said, Bill, you got a great sense of humor. That's not funny. I said, it's not a joke. And I said, and the vice president, he's going to be murder for us. And there's going to be renegotiation and remediation.
Vice president of who?
Of that organization. Now, I am the president now. There's a new sheriff in town, and like, God. And we had to do another couple of months, and we got a settlement. And it was great, and it worked.
And when you talk about a settlement between whom?
But with all the groups, in terms of what constituted quality education.
So the school board,
the school board,
the city council.
The city council was not involved in it, but the school board was involved in it, and
the various black organizations, various Hispanic organizations, and then the various conservative
the
white
conservative organizations, and some liberal organizations, and also the Genesee Ecumenical Ministry, which involved all the churches and Catholic and Protestant, and they were very powerful in that as well.
During these negotiations, was that the first time you met many of these church leaders, or had you known them because of your work?
I knew some. I knew the key ones. I knew the liberal ones. I knew the progressive ones.
So you got this agreement and signed or left unsigned
the
again.
The parties got the agreement.
Sure, I understand.
Okay, all right.
But you facilitated this.
I mediated, had tough caucuses, everything else, fine,
And then did you actually write it down eventually, or was it just
it was written
one?
down, and I've got it in my big blue book. The Buffalo News did a big story on it because in those days this was primarily used for labor management situations, not for community disputes on it. And so they had the picture of Bill Abner, the head of this organization, American Arbitration National Center, and Tom Colosi, and didn't have a picture of me. And they called up and said, "Why didn't you give them a picture?" I said, "You taught me to keep a low profile." I said, "Low profile does not mean invisible, right?" But my name was in the article, and for having done this and that stuff, then it was fine. And then the American Arbitration Association, the Justice Department said, "We'd like to hire you for the community relations stuff of the Justice Department." And I said,
in Rochester.
They didn't know where they were going to put me. Okay, they didn't know where they were going to put me. And then the American Arbitration Association said, "We'd like to hire you." We didn't discuss salary at all, and they said, "We'll even pick up all expenses and move you to Boston." Done. It was hard leaving to Rochester.
Go home to mom's cooking.
Well, it was hard to leave Rochester because Chuck Mangione was a very good friend of ours, and he was over the house all the time. The jazz player and stuff, and a lot of friends like that. It was a really, really good stuff. And but I was going home, and I thought I was going to die in Rochester. How do you get out of there? And so
tired of the snowstorms.
Yeah, and so then I did, and
that was when.
That had to be in. I'm thinking now 74, maybe 73. I have to look at that. But then.
And what were your functions when you moved to Boston?
Well, I was supposed to develop a community center that would do all these things, but be part of the American Arbitration Association, And I haven't been trained. I've never had a course in negotiations. I've never had a course in mediation. Still haven't. I haven't had any of this stuff. And I'm supposed to develop this center. I have no idea how I'm going to do that. But then all the flack happened when Wounded Knee happened. Was one of the things that happened. And Leonard Garment, who was White House counsel, said we've got to go out there, and AAA asked me to be the one to go out there with one other mediator.
AAA, American
Arbitration Association, yeah, and we made a couple of trips there, and I learned a lot of things that applied that helped me out there. For example, we went from a hotel to hotel to hotel in our first trip out to Pine Ridge. You know, we were in Sioux Falls, and they would say, "Do you work for a governmental agency?" And I said, "No." And I said, "I'm sorry, we have no rooms." You know, and like we're running out of places. Where the hell are we going to stay? And so I was with Earl Brown, a former Harlem Globetrotter, and he's on the staff. And I said, "Earl, let me handle this one, okay? We got like 1 or 2 hotels left here, a bed and breakfast." And so I said, "I'd like to register here," and I picked up the pen, and they said, "Are you a governmental agency?" I said, "Excuse me?" I said, "Are you a governmental agency?" I took out my card and I said, "The National Center for Dispute Settlement of the American Arbitration Association." And you're asking me, is this a governmental agency? Well, I'm sorry. And so we registered. You know, we're not. We're a major nonprofit organization, you know. And he had pulled one better because we tried to rent a car, you know, and we couldn't rent a car. And
Because he was black.
no, because every time you're going to rent a car, they'd look up and the woman said, "No, I can't rent it to you." Like, who the hell? What is this? You know? So Earl said, "Bill, I'm going to make a phone call, okay? And you'll know what that phone call is." I said, "No," I said, "Yeah, you'll know." And now this guy, he's straight smart. And so he said,
He's also
"Just
six.
stand
He's also
here."
6'6".
Yeah, he's just, yeah. He used to go around in these white suits and he'd say to people, "Don't touch me, I won't get my deposit back," stuff like that. You know? And he said, "Stand by that car agency because we haven't gone to them yet. So stand by them." I said, "I have no idea what's going to happen." This occurred. Then there's a loudspeaker announcement 10 minutes later that would all federal agents please report to this corner, and sure enough, honest to God, and then I knew what my cue was. We had never discussed it, was rent the damn car, you know, and look, there's no one for her to look at. And that's what was happening. They were looking and getting a no or a yes or whatever, like that, because they didn't want people out there. Because Marlon Brando had been there and everybody had been there, you know. And I said, "God, I can learn stuff from this guy." Yeah, I mean, I thought I was smart. This guy is really smart. Well, anyway, we did all the mediation for moving. Well, to make the long story short, I'm sorry this is taking too much time.
Wounded Knee was an important chapter.
But when we got out there, we realized that the government negotiating team was changing every 3 days. Somebody from BIA would be out there for 10 days, but then would go back and they put somebody else in, or nobody in until a week later, and from housing, you know, and welfare. I mean, it was just crazy. And
Were the FBI involved?
well, we got called in right after the U.S. Marshal was shot and paralyzed, and we got up there in Wounded Knee when it was like in May, and this little snow squall would come over. You know, it was really weird because Russell Means would be wrapped up in like a buffalo robe, and they'd say, "Okay, we're all ready," and CBS and NBC would say, and he'd say, "It's a good day to die. It's a good day to die. Thanks, Russell, and he'd take it off. And then somebody from another country, "I'm sorry we got here late," and he'd do it again. It's a good day to die. And this looks so dramatic on TV, you know. And we had to say to Russell, you know, there are a lot of ranchers around here that agree with you. It's a good day to die, you know. And we got along with Russell real well. But we went back to D.C. and we said, "We're going to make the suggestion to you that you move the entire negotiations to Washington, D.C. You fly them on commercial, you pay their way, and if negotiations break down, you fly them back, you know, complete safety, and they can drive right up to and pick up their guns and start shooting again, if you know, on that." And through Garment.
And you decided to do that so that there would be continuity in the negotiating
Absolutely.
team.
And then we turned it right back over to the Justice Department, the Community Relations Service on that. And we were not involved. We were only involved procedurally, but it was a big move. And even on my resume, I make it clear we only did the procedural matters because substantively, I'm not sure anybody agrees how it turned out. but we did that. But then I had the Walpole prison, my best
The riots.
big riots, you know, and one of the things that really helped me in that is that, well,
And why were you,
You have to be
why were
authentic.
you called in, and who called you in?
I got called in by the governor, Governor Sargent. Governor Sargent was a Republican, and everybody in Massachusetts still will say he's the best Democratic governor we ever had. He was incredibly progressive, and he said, "What if we don't use this mediation stuff?" Well, he came to me. I didn't go to him. He came to me, and I said, "Well, you know, it's just done like that. You'll probably have an Attica." This was 18 months after Attica, and he said, "Well, what if we do the mediation? It doesn't work." I said, "You probably have Attica a little later." And it was always reminding them of the Attica. And Barney Frank was a state assembly person there, and he was a good liaison for me on that. So we did the mediation thing, and then you know, go through all the details, but you know, he was going to fire all the guards because they left. There was nobody left in the prison except the inmates. You know, and well, you got yourself into a mess here. You're going to fire the guards, right? You know. And I had to, it didn't take much convincing. I said, the only primary resources here, as far as I'm concerned, are the inmates and the guards. They know what will work. The administration doesn't know. Now, I learned that from the desegregation case in school. Only the teachers, the custodians, and the students know what will work. They're the primary resources, not the school board, not city council, whatever. So it's fine. So I was picking up stuff along the way. And so the guards said, well, I mean, we can't be at the table because we said we wouldn't do that because we don't trust who the power brokers are for the inmates. And I came up with this crazy idea. The guards will trust the American Arbitration Association for impartial elections. That's what the American Arbitration Associations used to do. It used to run impartial elections to see whether there be a union or not, right? And so we got the League of Women Voters and the American Arbitration Association, and we were able to convince people to allow us to have 2 inmates and 2 guards, and we brought voting machines right inside the prison, and you, Mark, could go up to Mike and say, "I'm going to vote for you, Mike, by golly," you know, and this is it, and you could vote for Nancy, you know,
Because nobody would know.
no one would know. And if I ever find that people voted for Nancy, I'll kill them myself, Mike. You got, guess who won? The same 6 people. And so the guy said, well, okay. You know, and I did say to them, like, they're the power. You know they're the power. Why would you want to make a deal with anybody who doesn't have the power?
That's right.
They will keep their word. If they say, I'm going to kill you, they're going to keep their word. I mean, this is one of those things, right? So we got a lot of good publicity on that, and it just kept on going.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No.
I need to understand. You had the first initial conversation with the Governor Sargent, and he was asking you these questions.
Oh.
And then did he appoint you to did
No,
he
I said,
ask you?
No, I said, you can't appoint me. You can't do that. The inmates have got to say yes. So I said, no, the inmates have got to say yes. So I had a phone. They said, okay, we're going to send a police car to you. No, don't do that. You're just going to add to the anxiety and stuff. And the first thing was a helicopter. They said, no, Jesus, no, don't do that. I want to drive my own car down there, but I want to have a phone call with them first. And, okay, we can arrange for that in our office. I said, no, I want it in my office. And so I called them up, and they put me through. I'm sure somebody was listening to it. And I asked the inmates, I said, you know, you're going to have to decide whether help is on the way or not. Can you just not do anything, I think I used the word crazy. Can you just not do anything crazy or stupid for the next hour and a half till I have just a chance to talk to you, all right? So I went down there, and by that time I had some credentials.
They had taken over the prison? Is
Oh
that
yeah,
what
absolutely. It's not a guard in it. They've got the whole prison.
So how many
You know.
days had passed from the time they took over to the time Sargent came to you to the
I'm
time you
gonna
had the
guess
conversation?
3, you know, 3. I'm going to guess at that. So I went down there, and the inmate said, well, who's paying you? I said, the state. He said, well, now here's where they begin to deal about the humor again. They said, well, then you're not neutral. You know, the state pays you. I said, you guys want to pay me? I have no problem with that. They laughed out right like that, you know. I said, well, what if we take you hostage? And I said, you let me go in an hour. I said, I want to cry for my mom, you know. And they laughed about that. And but we found out that they knew how to yell and scream and demand. They didn't know anything about negotiations. Nothing. And the press had a nice little time with us because we got a kind of a truce We trained the guards, well, the administration negotiating team, with a camera on us, WGBH, right in their TV, not for the audience, but closed tape, so the inmates could watch it. And then we trained the inmates in the same stuff separately for 3 days, and the guards could watch it to see that we're playing strictly neutral. I mean, there's nothing neutral about me, but they'll never know.
Right.
You know, they'll never know what it is. You know, and so we started building up some credentials and stuff, and then I decided I would go on my own, and I did, and I just arbitrated, mediated some cases. I don't do relationship cases. I had about 3 relationship termination cases, you know, and I hated it. I mean, it's just like, you know, these divorces. I mean, I just felt like I will pay the alimony. Just get the hell out of here. Don't, you know, I just don't want to hear of you again. I mean, just bad. And then I moved to Vermont and ran my office from Vermont. And then I decided.
And what kind of clients were you getting at this point?
I was getting a lot of labor management. I was got what they wasn't it. We wrote all the curriculum out of that office before I quit. We well, actually, we was kind of a mix in a transition. We wrote all the conciliation and mediation curricula for EEOC. And
In Boston.
In Boston and in Vermont.
This is prior to you leaving the office in Boston.
Yeah, well, just in the middle of it, you know, and actually it was a subcontract on it, but we wrote it all, big manual, and which has been revised many times since, I'm sure, and so I moved to Vermont, and one of our associates' office was, you know, and they have a Christmas card all the time on TV that you'll see these Clydesdales going across the green, and then the camera backs up and you see the window frame, you know, and that was taken from our associate's office in Vermont. His address was called 5 the Green, you know, it's just Woodstock, Vermont, beautiful town. And had good staff, good associates, and then I decided I'm going to open up a West Coast office.
No, time out. I'm sorry. I need to understand.
See, I want to get to these questions.
No. You know, don't worry. We're going to get there. But we have to establish credibility. I need to understand, after you did Walpole, how did you decide that you had enough credibility and or potential customers to go off on your own?
It actually was procedural dissatisfaction.
Take your arms away.
It was procedural dissatisfaction. That I had some concerns in terms of how the office was being treated. Of all the offices for the community sector, we were by far the leaders on it, and but we.
This is for the American arbitration.
Yeah. And matter of fact, Archie Cox, when I was doing Walpole, they had a big arbitration day, and Archie Cox in his speech, and I only had met him recently, and I'm sure the speech was written for him. But he said, the way labor management's going, Now, what Bill Lincoln is doing is very, very interesting. Whether it will work or not, whether it can be sustained or not, whether it can be institutionalized, that these labor management lessons will be incorporated in the community sector, maybe the environmental sector. Well, they just have to see. And I'm going, holy shoot. I'm sitting at this banquet, and Archie Cox is talking about me. I mean, I thought it was a riot, you know. That was really funny, you know. And I mean, I remember the day when he got appointed to be the special prosecutor, because he came in the American Arbitration Association, and he picked up John Church, the director there, and he said, let's jump. He had a pickup truck. He said, let's just jump in my truck and run over to Harvard so we can watch the announcement. And so that was kind of cool, you know. And but I flew down to New York City to talk with the head of the American Arbitration Association. And he said, you know, be there at, I don't know, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, whatever it was. Maybe it was noon. And I waited and waited. An hour and a half had gone by, and got into his office. And, let me take this phone call. Let me take this phone call. And I'm just liking this. And he said, okay, Bill, okay, I know why you're down here, okay, and this is what we should do. Like, all I've done so far is say, "Hi, Bob. Sure, take the phone call, man." That's all I've said. And he says, "I know why you're here. Okay, this is what we should do this." And he stood up and he's looking at his watch, and I know he wants to catch the train home to Long Island or whatever. And he's saying, "We got to do this more often." And I said to myself, the best time to look for a job is when you got one. I don't want to be here anymore. I have the biggest respect for the American Arbitration Association. I really do. But I don't want to be here anymore. This is, I need something more responsive than this. And so I just decided I would take a big swallow and try to go it on my own. And
And how did you begin to get clients? All word of mouth? Just people who knew you?
I had no money for brochures or anything like that. I worked out of my home. I got calls from people. I got a big, doesn't sound like much now, but I got a this is now 74, 75, got a $125,000 contract from a special education board for New York State to write a major curriculum for them to hear special education cases, through mediation, and one thing led to another,
And if I remember correctly, weren't you also involved in the Roxbury desegregation?
oh, I didn't have Roxbury. It looked like to the nation, to the world, that Boston was just blowing up. And out of 19 secondary schools, only 3 had problems. South Boston, actually 4, South Boston, Hyde Park, East Boston, and Roslindale. And Roslindale was settled really fast. We did that one. It was not a problem. And
You were involved in that.
yeah, but my basic one was Hyde Park. That was just furious. It was just hell. Big picture of me in the Boston Globe, the neutral mediator, right? Leading I made a deal with the cops, leading all the black students out of the school onto buses, because the school it had to be closed. I'm against closing the school, but they already announced it was going to be closed, and I made a deal with the cops in terms of bringing more horses, push everybody away, and they said, well, it's going to be chaos trying to get. I said, no, I'm telling the kids, all right, get on any damn yellow bus that you see. It doesn't make any difference, okay? We're going to arrange that they're all convened at a shopping plaza miles away, and then you get on the right buses and stuff like that, And then I worked with Best.
And you did that because of parental rioting?
Oh, I mean, it was horrible. People throwing rocks and screaming, and people have been hurt and stuff like that. And I made it. Worked with the principal Best. Said, don't close the school anymore. No matter what happens, please don't close the school. It took days to open up, 3 or 4 days to open up the school again. Don't close the school. And then he said, what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to do salt and pepper. He said, what do you mean? I said, I'm going to do salt and pepper. I'm going to take black kids and white kids who are like this, and we're going to give them a whole new prestige and put them in teams, and tell me, you think you have power. You guys only have power if you can keep the school quiet. If you can't keep it quiet, you're a total failure. Well, they loved it. They loved it.
The kids.
Yeah, these black and white kids, they would team up, You're black, you're white, you can't get along, now you're a team. Let's pick out another couple and we had, I don't know, about 20 of these kids around here, and they didn't have to go to classes. They like that too, right? I don't think any one of them, black or white, would have done anything in class anyway, But they were it. And then I also found out.
And they were hall monitors, and they were
hall monitors. They would say, "Don't do that." They would say that together. People didn't do that, Get to class, I mean, and they started developing a maturity and a civility, like wow. I mean, they were employable. I mean, in terms of this, they were really good. And all the time we're trying to mediate what the whole school in June is 5 to 10% black, and it's 50-60% black in September. Cheerleaders all white. Ugh, big problem. Football, black and white, they're fine. We're playing football. But cheerleaders, we had to work that out. White cheerleaders shouldn't be fired. Black cheerleaders shouldn't be left out. I'm in a dilemma here. And I said, how can I do this? I can't violate the Civil Rights Act. I can't say only black cheerleaders need to apply. So fine, this is fantastic. And so I asked them, I said, what would happen? Because the white cheerleaders were saying, we wanted to be cheerleaders all our life, and we shouldn't have to give up our spot. And as far as concerned, that the white cheerleaders were right, and the black cheerleaders said we would have been black cheerleaders in our own school if we, and they were right, you know. And so what would happen if for the next 2, maybe 3 years, instead of 7 cheerleaders, we would have 14 cheerleaders, and the only ones who could apply were people who weren't here, students who weren't here the year before, which meant white could apply, but implicitly it was only black would. In fact, males could apply, but implicitly it would be males. And I have to get a written agreement. And they said, so I wouldn't have to give up my job? I mean, so I could be yeah. And I'm trying to write an agreement, and they should have filmed this thing because people are saying, and they were fighting like hell, swearing like hell before, and now they're like, honey, you call that a cheer? That's not a cheer. Let me show you what a cheer is. I mean, this was absolutely a riot. So I get this agreement. I go down to Bill Riley's, I think it's Bill Riley. He was a superintendent, not O'Reilly, but Bill Riley, superintendent of schools. And I said, we got a deal. Now, you have to think of Hyde Park having 150 police officers on horseback, right? No, and I said, Bill, here's the deal. And he said, now remember, he's got Louise A. Hicks and Kerrigan and these big races there, and so he's a little nervous. So he says, well, who would pay for the uniforms, the extra uniforms? And I said, yeah, I am not even going to be in sight of the cameras if you say that. Not even the sight of the. In fact, I'm not going to be sight of the cameras at all. And of course, the uniforms were taken care of, you know. But one of the great letters I got from Walpole going back there, and I loved it when the lieutenant governor. I mean, I had a lot of things. They brought me. They tried to indict me because I found out where there were weapons, guns, and bullets, and
In the prison.
in the prison, and the prisoners wanted to show me that they were powerful. I said, why would they take my word for it? All right.
So, going back to you were going to be indicted.
Well, I said the inmates, I said, they're not going to believe me that you got weapons in here. How the hell could you have weapons in here? I mean, they even looked at me like, I mean, the Boston Strangler has been killed in his cell 2 days after he cooked me breakfast in the prison hospital, right? $50,000 is found in his mattress that he did not have when he came in here. He made a lot of money selling jewelry for visitors. You know what he made? Chokers for the women. That's, you know, the thing, that's what they were. They called chokers, you know. And these very tight necklaces around that. And so I said, you're going to have to give me some evidence. I said, okay. We worked out the details. I called up the lieutenant governor's, the governor's office, and got Don Dwight, the lieutenant governor, and I said, we got to work this out that at midnight tonight, not tomorrow, it's got to be tonight, that I've got I'm going to walk over the prison with some guns and some bullets, and I need to turn them over to authorities. Well, you can give them to the warden on at night. I said, they call superintendent. I said, can't do that, because they'll know exactly where I've been in the prison, and so fine. So I'm working in the prison. I wait till the shift changes. I've been in there for several hours now. I have a gun. I have some bullets. You know,
And why did you bring? Oh, because they wanted to prove.
I would say, like, guys, all right. I mean, they're serious here, all right. This, and I was even a negotiator. I said, you're going to give me one gun and some bullets? Come on, guys. And I said, evidence. All right, so I got 2 guns and a bunch of bullets, you know. I think the more the merrier, what the hell, you know. What can they say is no? So I walk right out the prison, and there's a state police car right in front of the prison. It must be midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, you know, because no one even is aware that the lieutenant governor is sitting in the passenger seat. Mm-hmm. And he wants to witness this whole thing. And a very nervous state police guy standing by the door, and I turn it over to him, and then it gets announced the next day what I did, and God, there's a grand jury convened by somebody who wants to run for the governorship, who happens to be head of that county. Wasn't Middlesex County? I forget what county it was, and so I'm going through a grand jury. Now I'm willing to tell everything. I don't know anything about grand juries, right? The American Arbitration Association sends a lawyer down to me, Bob Rodman. I'll never forget him, big, tall guy. He said, okay, we need to practice this, Bill. And he explained to me about the grand jury, okay? You don't want to say anything or they can build on that, all right? And so I want to give you some practice. So you got me, understand me, Billy Boy? I hated that all the time. I think I had a good boy, Billy Boy. And oh, God, it drove me nuts. So he said, we're going to have a little practice with this. So we sit down with the state police. And the state police said, well, we'd like to ask you a couple of questions. Is it true that you are the one who removed guns from the prison and turned them over to the gun? And I'm going, well, and Bob Rodman says, oh, excuse me, okay. As I said before, we will talk about anything but guns. Okay, so he can't answer that question. Oh, okay. And he said, well, isn't it true that you brought out some bullets? Bob said, excuse me, okay. See, bullets relate to guns? Okay, and we're not going to talk about that. So now I'm catching on. So he says, so when you're in the grand jury, Bill, I forgot to tell you, I can't go in there with you. No attorney. It's just you and them. That's a scary experience. You see there's not 12 people, a whole bunch of people here. And he says, so you're going to plead the fifth, or you're going to plead professional immunity. You don't have that, but federal mediators do have immunity. And the American Arbitration Association, this is news to me, I'm just going in there, they're hoping that you'll be indicted because they want to get immunity for all mediators.
They want to set a
And I'm saying with the
precedent.
highest voice you can imagine, they want me indicted. And so I'm alternating the fifth professional, the fifth professional, fifth. Now I'm having fun with him. Would you repeat that question? And then Moriarty was brought in before the grand jury. He was head of the state police, and but he was also acting warden when the warden or the superintendent when they got fired. So he had both roles, and he made it clear that if you indict Lincoln, it'll be men and women on my staff that'll raise his bail fund, because those bullets and those guns were meant for us or guards. So I didn't get indicted. Right. So when we got the final settlement, I really liked it because the lieutenant governor wrote a really nice letter on his letterhead, and it's a long letter, but right in the middle of it is that we had no Attica. Well, that was my big tool, because I would remember, well, shit, if you wanted Attica, just do what you're doing, guys. And it was that memory of Attica that I would hit them with in a very professional but firm way. And so it was good.
So, well, you moved to Vermont and you started getting business.
Yeah, I
And
had
people
some
called.
business
People
with me.
remembered you. They called you up.
Yeah, and I was doing okay, and then I got appointed. Well, while I was still in Boston, I settled a big public housing case, racial case in East Boston, and the parish priest was very much involved in that and of great assistance. And he happened to be the priest of, at one time or another, and good friend of the Speaker of the House, Tip O'Neill. So that came to the attention of Tip. So then there's this whole idea of having a commission for the U.S. Institute of Peace. Should we have a U.S. Institute of Peace or not? Governmental thing. And I was called and saying, this is going to be a federal commission. Presidential commission, again, I didn't know anything, counts for nothing. A federal commission means the House appoints 3, the Senate appoints 3, the White House appoints 3. And Tip wants somebody from Massachusetts on that. And he suggested you. Well, I had not met Tip. And so when I met him, I said, Tip, I'm not sure I'm in favor of this or not. U.S. Institute of Peace, where you're going to have a football team, and if they intercept a pass, we're going to apologize and give the ball back. The whole thing counts. Yeah, I said that twice. The whole thing sounds really silly to me, And he said, well, you're a practitioner, and I want somebody on that's committed to the process but not committed to the results. I said, okay. And so they're fooling around. They're going to hearing, and there's a campaign for it. And they asked me to testify in Congress. And whether we should set up this commission or not. So the State Department testifies in front of me. And I'm appalled, I'm shocked that they're absolutely against this idea. Then it's my turn. And Dante Fasell from Florida, Democrat from Florida, he's head of this committee and for the hearings. And I'm stunned, and I'm up there, and a minute and a half must have gone by, and Dante Fissell says, "Are you okay, Mr. Lincoln? Are you prepared?" I said, I'm just stunned. I'm prepared to say why we should have a committee. I'm just stunned in terms of why the State Department would say we shouldn't even study whether it should have one or not. And Dante Fissell took off his glasses. He says, "I'll tell you why, Mr. Lincoln, because the State Department is afraid if anybody puts this loaf in the oven, it's going to get baked." And so I thought it was cute. And lo and behold, I got named to the commission by Tip O'Neill. And Senator Spark Matsunaga from Hawaii, he was the head of the commission. And Representative John Ashbrook from Ohio, he was on it. And I forget the guy who was head of agriculture.
Butts.
No.
It was after Butts.
He's now took Valenti's place for Hollywood. He was from Kansas. He was a congressman from Kansas. Yeah, I mean, some very big people on it. And this little peon Lincoln is on this thing here. And it was very interesting because General Goodpasture, came back to West Point after the scandal, and I got to talk to him an awful lot. And Harold Brown, I got to talk to him, and he was head of defense under Carter, and so I had this additional credential now. I was one of the 9 commissioners for the U.S. Institute of Peace to see whether we should have it or not. So we're going all over the country having these hearings and stuff, and
Now, this is an unpaid post.
no, there was I think
There was a stipend?
It was you only got paid for your travel time and the time you were there. It was like $500 for the day, something like that.
Okay.
And maybe you put in 50 days over the year, and met with President Carter at the White House and stuff. It was really funny because we went in the cabinet room, and Carter was he was talking to Jack Dunphy, who was then owned the Park House in Boston, a very famous hotel, and he owned half of Aer Lingus, and big contributor to the thing. And so I was unaware that President Carter was in the room for about 3 minutes before he came up to me, and I've never met him before, and right away he says, Commissioner Lincoln, I've been hearing about you, and I think da-da-da, and I'm shocked. First of all, I'm thinking, my God, you're shorter than I am. Who the hell wants a short president? It was my thought, And do you realize you have a razor rash, And this is a guy I deeply respect, but I always thought he was tall and, all that kind of stuff. And so, but the thing is, he said, okay, why don't you sit right here, Mr. Lincoln, Commissioner Lincoln, and in the cabinet room, they have a nameplate under each chair, what cabinet official sits where. And this one here was Secretary of Agriculture, and I said, if you don't mind, Mr. President, I'd like to sit here. And he laughed and laughed, and nobody knew what he was laughing at. Secretary of the Treasury. So I sat right across from him, right? And then I pulled a big thing. We're leaving, and I said, I know how much that, your daughter means to you, and this is my daughter's birthday. And I've always got there, had to leave the day before her 14th birthday. It's the first time I'm actually right there. And I'd love it if you could give her a birthday card. He said, let's stop by the Oval Office, and so he writes out this birthday card, which she still has, sure. President card and stuff like that. So anyway, come with credentials, and so then I decided I would come out to Seattle because I was getting a lot of work from Seattle, from the Seattle School Board, from Antioch University, from the Teachers Union, from one of the hospitals.
Why were you getting so much business?
I have no idea. I think it happened because I had to, I was invited to make a speech in Seattle, and it was held at Antioch University. And the UN, Friends of the United Nations, whatever it's called, they were there, a lot of people there, and some people in conflict resolution were there. So then I got invited to come to another speech, and then other people. And then Antioch asked me if I would come out and teach a week-long course, 8 to 10 hours a day. And then some people said, I'd like what you do. Would you do something with our...
So it was kind of serendipity
that
this happened.
And I said, well,
had you been invited to L.A., you might have had more
absolutely.
Business in L.A.
Yeah,
Got it.
absolutely.
Okay.
And I was getting a lot of invitations to Santa Fe, and almost said, I'm going to do that. And
so you're doing a lot of work in the Northwest, a lot of work in the Southwest,
Yeah.
and still New England.
Yeah, So fine, and I moved here in 2 days. I was here 2 days and got a heart attack.
And those were and those the kind of work you were doing were labor management, or was it
Most
was
of
it
it's labor management stuff.
mostly labor
yeah.
management? Mm-hmm.
And I didn't really care whether I mediated anymore or not. In my mind, I really wanted to do what in those days was really called systems change.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're having that many grievances on your contract, there's something wrong with the contract. There's something wrong with the contract, you know. And I was getting kind of tired of almost the same complaints sometimes coming up on it, like, you know, how the hell did I even get into the contract? You know, I mean, so why didn't somebody spot this right away? You know, this was going to be bad. So I was more in systems change. So then while I was in the hospital, I was at Tacoma General then, and had my operation and whatnot.
You had not moved here yet, had you?
Yeah, I just moved here 2 days. I was here 2 days.
And why did you decide to move here instead of staying in Vermont and continuing to work?
Because there's a lot of work here. It's going to open up a West Coast office. You know, have East Coast office, have West Coast office. I told my associates back east, you know, I was sitting in the hospital and I was saying, you know, I know why I have a heart attack. Because when they opened me up, they saw a whole bunch of arrows sticking in my chest. Just stopping arrows. And the next time they opened my shirt, I want them to see a bunch of holes in my chest, like let the arrow go through. And I was getting contract because someone was having a baby. I was getting another contract because someone was buying a house. I was getting a contract because somebody was going to go to college. I mean, the associates, you know. I mean, I was adopting the concerns that were way beyond my capability, not my responsibility, but my capability. And I had a heart attack. And so I decided I'm going to have a one-button phone. That's all. No more staff. Don't have to worry about it. Easy. Do all my work myself. And now the good part comes, because it wasn't like 86, 87, 86. I said, this whole idea of a Nicaragua civil war is BS. I was furious about this thing, that this is a war we started, you know, the Contras were basically our mercenaries, you know. If I was a priest or a teacher or a doctor, I would know what to do, you know. But so I wrote to, I had this idea that what if we were to not train, but to share with the Nicaraguans different ways that we negotiate. If they're going to deal with the United States, you might well see different ways that we negotiate. And they said, oh, great idea.
Who said, oh, great idea?
Me. I said, great idea.
Oh.
And so somebody says, oh, write to Jane Fonda. Psh, no reply. Write to Ed Asner. No reply. You need some money to do this, you know. Not much, but a little bit. You know, write to Mrs. Kroc. No idea. And then Frank Kelly, who used to be head of the Senate Policy Committee and also a major speechwriter for Harry Truman, said, you know, you got a credential now of a former commissioner. It's only good for about 3 to 5 years now. Write to the president of Costa Rica on your idea of training, or using that word, but we'll use the word training, the Sandinistas and also UNO. And I feel fine. I mean, nothing's going to happen, but at least I tried to do something. And now you realize how important the secretaries are, because President Carrazzo, then it was Carrazzo, he's going on a trip, and the secretary, the male secretary, he decides what goes in the briefcase. He said, whoa, what an interesting letter.
And you had listed it former U.S. or just U.S. federal?
No, I didn't even put that in. I didn't even bother putting that in.
Oh, you didn't?
Yeah.
No credentials. Just like this would be a common citizen?
That's all. Yeah.
An idea.
Just an idea. Yeah. I mean, I have an honorary doctorate degree. I don't.
You didn't put any credentials in there. You put no experience.
I just said I have experience in having worked for the American Arbitration Association, doing that. One paragraph, you know, that I do have some credibility, but I didn't put U.S. And I know what one of the reasons I didn't, because I didn't know what the U.S. meant. You know, how was the U.S.
Yeah,
leave it out, you know. So anyway, they get stuck. He's coming to the United States. He gets stuck on a traffic jam in Los Angeles, and he says, "Oh, bring out the briefcase." He starts going through the briefcase. He says to Murray Silverman, one of his top aides, he says, "God, Murray, this is a good idea. Next time we have a pullover, call the guy up." So I get this call. The guy says, "I'm Murray Silverman. I'm the whatever title you use for President Carrazzo." And Murray had a good credential. He was remember that big housing thing that Kennedy did for Latin America? I forget the name of it. Well, Murray was the head of that for Kennedy, with a big outreach and that. So he said it's an interesting idea, and
So he's an American who's working for
he's
the
American,
president.
yeah. And he speaks Spanish fluently. I mean, and married a Spanish woman, Vicky. And so anyway, I said, "Well, what's the next step?" He said, "Carrazzo would like to see you down here in Costa Rica." I said, "Okay."
Costa Rica or Guatemala?
Costa Rica.
Or Nicaragua, I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
Costa
so
Rica.
I fly down to Costa Rica, and they introduced me to Barry Roberts, who was one of the commandants for the Sandinistas. And so Barry starts talking Spanish. And he realizes in about 45 seconds, I don't know a word of Spanish. I haven't the slightest idea. My wife's with me. They said, "Oh, no, I'll let your wife give me fine. No, not a problem." So my wife's with me. And so Barry says in beautiful English, he says, "You don't speak Spanish?" I said, "No, I don't." And he said, "Have you ever done any international work before?" And I said, I can't believe I said this. I said, "Well, once I was on the Canadian side of Niagara Falls," right? He didn't laugh. My wife didn't laugh. No one laughed. You know, you're the first people who ever laughed. You know, and he said, "How do you know that what you have to offer us would work?" I said, "I have no idea at all." He asked a bunch of questions. I said, "It will or it won't. I mean, I don't know." He asked me if I could stay 2 or 3 more days. I said, "Well, there's a deal killer right there." And my wife said, "I don't think so." So I said, "Okay, well, see Costa Rica and stick around here." And 2 days went by, and Barry called us up and said, "I'd like to have meet again." That's a good sign.
Now, why were you meeting with the Sandinistas when you had met with President Caruso?
President Carrazzo.
Of Costa Rica.
Carrazzo says, I'm going to suggest to somebody in the Sandinistas that that you have an idea."
Because he was the
But
president
I've
of
read it. I think it's a good idea.
Got it. And you
I-
wrote to the president of Costa Rica because you thought he would be a good arbitrator?
I wrote to President of Costa Rica because Frank Kelly said to write to the President of Costa Rica. So I mean, like, why not? Costa Rica is right next to Nicaragua. What the hell? Why not? You know, he must know somebody. You know, so and all they can do is say no. So anyway, he said. Now this is right after the famous Roger Fisher just got kicked out of Nicaragua because he had the answers how to solve the war. I mean, that's how Roger negotiates or mediates. Here's the answer. So they dismissed Roger on this thing. And I like to have that piece edited out if it could be, really, because Roger's a good friend of mine.
Yeah.
And, but I taught with him at Harvard University. He's the one who wrote the book Getting to Yes. And so anyway.
On his terms.
Yeah. Well, at least you mentioned my name in it. So
No, I mean, getting to yes, as long as you agree to meet with me,
yeah,
we'll get to yes.
So anyway, so I told Daniel about you. Daniel said, "Why would we ever use him, this Americano?" And Barry said, "He's the most honest gringo I've ever met." Always because I said, "I don't know, it'll work, it won't work. What the hell? I mean, well, how would I know? You know." So
Interesting.
then it was really crazy. So my wife is arguing with me, saying you need to have something in Spanish workbook. It's just not going to make sense to have a translator. And I said, fine. I got tired of hearing about it, you know. What she did say was, after Barry left, she said, and he said, "Fine, let's work all the arrangements. We're going to have you." And he left. And the first words out of Lois' mouth was, "So now what are you going to do, William?" That's what he said. "No, you love the chase. You love the chase. Now you got it. What are you going to do with it?" That's what she said to me. So she's on my back about we need something in Spanish. Like, I mean, this is expensive. So I'm going to call up my attorney. Her attorney was Ed Hudson. Sat down with Ed Hudson. You know Ed? You know, he was a former city council member, attorney, And
But I don't know.
And so I sat down with Ed and talked to him. Ed called me back in a week. He said, "Okay, tomorrow, clear your schedule. You're going to have lunch with Frank Underwood, all right? And he's going to ask you a lot of questions. Just relax, answer them. It's already been determined that you're going to get the money, all right? Now, he doesn't know that you know, but I know that you're going to get the money. And so so just go through this, answer his questions, and you'll have the money to have the materials translated in Spanish, and money to pay the translator down there, which was great. So we go down there, and 35 people drag their butt into this beautiful auditorium, and you can see the look on their faces. They don't want to be there. They've been told to be there, all right? And some of them got uniforms on and whatnot, and fine. And that look on their face is so clear that if this is not interesting, if this is not helpful, then leave at the first coffee break because you got something else to do. Right?
Wait a minute. You lost me. I thought you were going to have lunch with Frank Underwood.
Oh, that happened. I had lunch
okay.
with Frank
Sorry.
Underwood. That's done. Now 2 months later.
Okay.
Okay. Short lunch. Okay. And, 2 months later, I'm down there and at the Palmer Center, and it's really amazing because I never did before.
And these are Sandinistas who are in there?
all Sandinistas.
Yeah. And they're saying, okay, show me.
Yeah, and then it's amazing what I did. I just did it. I was a little frightened about it. I mean, like I'm over my head. What am I doing this for? And I made the statement that I would say before I made a sermon when I was in the ministry, and I just said it out loud. That may the words of my mouth, meditation and my heart be acceptable and effective in thy sight. And they're all Catholic. They're blessing themselves and like, whoa, So this was interesting. Like, we're going to start off with a prayer, and so. I skipped the point is, there's a thing called the UN University for Peace that was floundering and fumbling around. And I thought we ought to get additional credibility to get them. And the guy's name was Tapio Veris from Finland or Norway or whatever. And I literally had to take the pen and put it in his hand to sign the document. So we were doing this with the UN University for Peace. So anyway, we're up there now.
But there's no one from the university.
Yeah, they're sitting there in the
Okay.
audience, yeah. And so we're up there, and after the first coffee break, we no longer have 35 people, we've got 55 people. After lunch, we have 100 people, ambassadors even from other countries there, and had them for the remaining for 5 days. And
you're just training them on how negotiations happen.
things that how we do it in the United States. Not that you should do it. I don't have the audacity to tell you how you should do it. And there's a lot of things that you're talking about. That's what we do, but it's not written down anywhere. And so they're taking notes. They're in role plays. I had some of them play the part of the Contras, and it was good. And Daniel Ortega threw a nice supper for us, and there's president of the country sitting here with me, and he's got dungarees on, and it was great, right? Then UNO, we had offered the same thing to UNO, the United Nicaragua Opposition, the UNO party. Absolutely not, At the airport, they're demanding if we're really fair, if we're really neutral, they must have their training as well. We come back 3 weeks later, we do it with them, okay? Daniel now demands advanced training,
What up,
So this is great. So anyway, we do this, and I was really impressed.
Who's paying for all this?
I am paying for a couple of associates. I told some of my associates, I will pay your airfare, I will pay your lodging, I will give you no fee, all right? No fee. I'm getting no fee. We got money for translators, we got money for the materials, but that's it, all right? And so, and they were standing room only. They loved doing this. They had the same things that I did. And that to me was it. We did what we could do. And then I arrived home and I realized, my God, Brooklyn Rivera, big enemy of Ortega. Ortega says, I think you ought to meet with him. Like, where the hell am I going to meet with him? He said, well, we'll arrange it for you at the airport. So a meeting with Brooklyn Rivera in the VIP room, like, this is the guy that's trying to kill you and you're trying to kill him. And I mean, what kind of a country is this, it's so hot and humid. I would be able to joke with the Sandinistas and saying, tell me what you're fighting over again, because it was good. And we went down there one time after the war was after the war was well, after the elections,
Yeah.
and we stopped in this restaurant that we'd always stay in George. It was just great, but the prices were gone sky high from what they were before. And I said, Murray was with me, and Murray was the one who said, God, I mean, these prices are 10 times what they were during the, before. And he says, yeah, that's right. Saying the waiter, he says, what are you trying to do, pay for the war? And the waiter says, yeah. And he says, when do you want to pay for it? And the guy says, tonight, and so it was a nice joking with these folks. So anyway, I get home, I realize I've been in a war zone. I get a call from Bainbridge Island, from Connie Miller, saying, I've got some Russians here. You've got to come up and see them. I've told them about you. They said, oh, this is fantastic.
And how does she know you?
I don't know how the hell Connie was in a class with me at Antioch University on that, and I stayed at her house and her partner's house, and so I got to know them. And I said, I don't want to go to Bainbridge. I mean, I'm tired, and I don't want to do it. So meet the Russians in very broken English. I could hardly understand a word they said. Said, we're going to invite you to my country. Sure, absolutely good.
Were they part of the Goodwill Games?
No, they were over here in some kind of cultural exchange.
Okay.
And so fine. 4 weeks later, this letter comes in express from Russia, from the foreign ministry, inviting me to come to Russia. And I leave on just to make short speeches at different educational institutions. And I arrive in Russia, and first thing is, I got to throw a few of these things in. First thing is that one of my bags doesn't come through. And now it's like 11 o'clock at night, and I'm the only one there. Everyone else has gone through these doors. I got to have my bag. Then in English there's a sign that says lost and found. So I got in there, and there's 3 very, very obese women, Russian women, in there talking, da-da-da, and I came in, I explained that I need my luggage. And they were so excited, and they got out their little trot, and they saying, may we help, help, he says, help, may me help you. It was this fun. I have an idea, okay, let me leave this bag here, okay, I'm going to look for my bag. So I looked at it, I said, God, maybe it fell off the
trolley.
Thing. And so I go up and lift the thing, and somebody blows their whistle, hey, da-da-da, but I can see my bag. And I just out of reach, I get it, and this guard, Soviet uniform, oh, it's okay, So I bring the bag back. These women stand up, and so now I go through, what the hell am I going to do in Russia, right? I mean, nobody's here. You go through these swinging doors, and my God, there's thousands of people there waiting for other flights and other people. It's just separate compartments. So they're not where you actually get your baggage when you go through. This was in old Moscow. And there's a big sign on a stick saying, Lincoln wanted for conflict, and yeah. And I just did speaking engagements and stuff like that. And they asked me to come back again, and I said, maybe. They wanted me to sign their protocol. I'm not going to sign anything, and they took me to the big fancy restaurants, and they had this big plan. And I said, well, why don't we start?
And who is we? Who is
well,
they?
This guy that I met, the name was Alexander Karpenko, Yuri Pereligin, Vladimir Shetinsky. Shetinsky is head of their regional HUD office, up in St. Petersburg, and
regional what?
It's equivalent to our HUD. They call it Lengi Progor, and then they don't call it that anymore. And a very determined man, Jewish, in a Jewish choir, attending a temple all the time, refuses to be a communist. Alexander refuses to be a communist, will not sign. I mean, all these guys refused ever to be a communist.
But in positions of authority.
They got in positions of authority, and totally competent, qualified people. So I came up with this. Well, what wouldn't it be interesting? Because I kept on thinking. I mean, when we arrived in Moscow, they immediately showed me Red Square, and the Soviet flags hanging all over the place, and I thought, God, so this is the evil empire, kind of a thing. And I'm seeing lovers holding hands and saying, Jesus, we almost bombed them and they almost bombed us. I mean, this is ridiculous. So I suggested, what would happen if we would develop something called the Russian-American Program in Conflictology? This is still Soviet times. So that we would do our own little part to make sure this would never happen again.
86, 87?
It had been like 87, maybe 88, about 87, 88. And lo and behold, they liked the idea, and we began to do the same thing we did in Nicaragua, but then help them adapt it so it was Russianized. And
And working with what institution?
we worked out of an environmental organization, and also Lengi Progor, and then we did some stuff with Goskompriota, which then was their EPA, and then we did the first training program and negotiations that the Russians had in any formal sense, and we did it with striking coal miners, which was fantastic. And it was funny training them because all they wanted to do was dump Gorbachev. That was their big thing. I can't get involved in that, So we developed this, and then they developed like Mary Lisa's Dispute Resolution Center. That's what we developed. We got them grants and everything else, and that's what they developed.
Grants from where?
Got them from the Mott Foundation. We got the first, must have been the first or second or third grant from the Eurasia Foundation. Let's see, we got some from the Hewlett Foundation. We got some major grants from them to set this up. Great program. And then
Based in Moscow or St. Petersburg?
St. Petersburg. They're on the radio all the time, and people are fascinated by this. Interviews and papers. This is a whole new thing. They had what they call conflictologists over there, but those conflictologists...
Now, when Gorbachev was president, it hadn't changed its name back to St. Petersburg. It was still Leningrad.
It was Leningrad then. Okay. It was Leningrad then.
Just for the record. Okay.
Yeah, and a lot of jokes about that when we were over there. But anyway, then we got this idea with them. Why don't we develop in the university a program on conflictology?
A degree.
A degree program. And we told them it had to be interdisciplinary. They're going to take their sociology and psychology and their mathematics and geography, but then they have a major in this situation, right? And they did that. They would have 6 people, maybe 12 people, in these classes. It takes 5 years for the Ministry of Education to examine a program and decide whether or not it will be institutionalized. And they studied that, and they came out, and it really pissed Moscow off. They came out that on any state college or university that is going to have a major in conflictology has to follow the syllabus of the University of St. Petersburg.
And this was decided when? What year?
Oh, that would have been decided like 92, I guess 93, something like that.
You got a problem?
No problem.
Okay.
And then they started developing a master's program, right? Now they have that approved. And then it began to shoot off. And so that they have, now there are 22 state universities that have a bachelor's program, and some have a bachelor's and master's program. 22. University of St. Petersburg coordinates the entire consortium on that.
And it's basically the curriculum you developed.
And I want to end the Russian-American program. They said, we will, good people, we will tell you when to end the Russian-American program. That is our roof, what they call their roof, their sponsor right now. But I haven't done much of them for the last, I was going to say I have, because I'm trying to make it now, I'm afraid of U.S. relationships with Russia, so I'm trying to make it the Russian North American program and bring in Royal Roads University from Canada, and then we'll be safer with the program.
So go back, we're skipping too much. When did you teach at Harvard?
Oh, God, I taught at Harvard when I was in Boston. I'm going to have to look at their resume. I was looking at my faculty card the other day, and I'm guessing it was like 76, 77 through maybe 81, 82, something like that.
And where did you teach? What school?
First of all, which I love this idea, they had me teach at the Gunn School of Urban Design. We're teaching basically people are going to be urban developers and architects, mediation skills. That is so appropriate, because they're always in that kind of seat. And then they moved that over to the Kennedy School, and then Roger Fisher asked me to teach with him the negotiations in the interim period. 3 weeks, 8 to 5, 5 days a week, and you get a whole semester done in 3 weeks between semesters. And it was loaded to it. And I wasn't an attorney, so, but the students said you would be a professor's nightmare if you were in law school, and I took that as a compliment in terms of the questions I would ask and stuff. So
So you taught there for about 5 years.
yeah, something like that. And
Were you ever a teacher at
okay.
other universities?
I wouldn't. I was brought in for special programs.
And then you
even at UPS, at Antioch, I was brought in for special programs for a week
but
at
you
a
were
time.
you also taught for the Navy or the Department of
Well,
Defense?
I'm there now. I mean, I'm at the Navy Postgraduate School. I teach there about 5 times a year. I teach at the Federal Executive Institute, which is in Charlottesville, Virginia. It's the highest level you can go without being a political appointee. I love it. I have CIA, I have State Department, I have Treasury, I have Agriculture. I have them. It's a very eclectic class, and I have them. And I've been doing that for probably 20 years or more.
And who appointed you? How did you get appointed? Just
To what?
to all to these various teaching posts.
I got asked to do a job at the Pentagon, and somebody had been a graduate of the Federal Executive Institute, and they said, you know what Bill ought to teach? You know where they need him? The Federal Executive Institute. And we'll make the contact for you.
So that's what happened.
And they
And
said,
Harvard, it was somebody who knew you from Boston.
The guy who wrote the book with Fisher, Bill Urey, knew me very well. He said, we need you over here, because Roger is a great theorist, but he's not a practitioner, and you're a practitioner, Mm-hmm. In fact, you know nothing about theory, you're just a practitioner. So that happened there. I've taught sometimes several weeks at WSU, but not on the faculty.
And how did you get involved? So we're up to the late '90s. How did you get involved in Sudan? How did you get involved in Afghanistan?
Well, a lot of other things happened along the way. For example, it was only got asked to prepare all the parties for the Guatemala peace talks. Not mediating, prepare them all. And it was against the law for us to...
And that was asked by the State Department?
Actually, it was asked by the president of Guatemala and the head of the Peace Commission. And we had to prepare all the negotiators for you say the government, but we had to prepare all the negotiators for the military, for the civilian government, and then it was against the law for us to meet with the URNG in that country, so we had to go to Mexico and train them down there. Dr. Beckett, was a big political advisor to the rebels and stuff like that. It was very fascinating. So we prepared all those parties.
And you clearly you were recommended because of your work in Nicaragua.
I believe that was it. There still has to be somebody local who vouches for you, obviously, But we have a funny thing happen, and Julio Miralles used to be on my staff down there, and
Who's Julio?
Julio Kwan. He was head of what was it?
Central Latino.
He was head of that, and so there was a key word. The URNG didn't know anything about us, and Julio had a cousin who was in the URNG, and we're going to meet at a restaurant, and out of the blue, all of a sudden, this rebel appears. We talk to him, a lot of questions, and we turn our back, and all of a sudden he disappears. And the clue is that, okay, if he says yes, because Julio was persona non grata in Guatemala, all right? I mean, he walked a little dangerous title. I mean, he inflates a lot of stuff, but this is true. I mean, he was in a dangerous situation. He said, okay,
Because of his cousin.
Yeah. He said, okay, my key word will be, if the URNG say yes, I'm going to call you or Bruce, one of my chief of staff, and say, my uncle's very sick. That's it. So 3 weeks go by. Bruce he tries to call me. I'm not around. He gets hold of Bruce. He says, "Oh, Bruce." He says, "Bruce, oh, how are you?" He says, "My uncle's very sick." Bruce says, "Oh, I'm so sorry." Like that. Bruce forgets this. He says, No. He's very, very sick, Bruce. And he says, Bruce is a devout Catholic. Well, I'll pray for him. I mean, like, it finally dawns on Bruce that, oh, this is the key word. Julio loves that story, and it's just funny. And so we do that. We prepare for the RNG, and it was really strange because when I arrived there, I mean, I had missed my flight. I flew all night. I get down there for the first session like that, and the head of the Peace Commission is shaking his head, and after about a half hour, I'm going over some stuff, and maybe an hour, and he's shaking his head, and I rudely said, "What the hell's wrong? Okay, just say it." And he said, "Oh, Lincoln, this is not the first time that we try to have peace talks. We've never tried anything what you're discussing with us right now." And I thought, this is great. It still works. It still works. I mean, it's magic for some reason, And and I had fun with those guys because they would come in with their guns, so the military would, "Oh God, what a day!" Take off their belt and throw it on the chair with a gun, like, And one guy was saying, like, "When I see them, I'm going to tell them that blah, blah, blah," just incredibly vulgar language, "and I hate them," And I said, "I don't understand how that's going to help. They know you hate them, And he said, "I want his mother to know." I mean, it was really weird. But then that went on, and then it just exploded in the sense that, great, Solidarity called up and said, "We need to have you with us." I was in a class with you, Bill, and many people have been recommended, but you got scars. I mean, you've done prisons.
This is Lech?
No. This was one of the vice presidents. Lech Walesa had just been elected president. All of Solidarity is fragmented. People realized that, hell, they served time in jail, like I once said. If he can be president of the country, hell, I can be president of the country, right? So they're really fragmented and stuff, and fractionated, and got this call with the poorest Polish accent you ever heard, and I'm wondering which one of my associates is doing this. And after about 3 or 4 minutes, I realized this guy is not understanding my jokes. And it turns out he was one of the regional vice presidents, and he was calling from Poland and saying, "I heard you do some lectures. I want you to come up and work for us." And so I was with him for 10 days in Gdansk. And I started the thing off by saying, now I have a translator. I had a great translator. He was very animated. If I said, "I have 3 points to make," he'd say, "You have 3 more." And I'd say, and he'd go, "1," and I'd say, "Done." He'd go, "I mean," because he's the trainer. He's so it was great. So I said right away, "I'm very glad to be here, blah, 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 blah. Clearly, you folks know nothing about negotiations." And he said, "Excuse me?" I said, "Just tell them they know nothing about negotiations." So several people understood English, but they were listening, and so he explained stuff to them, and I said to them that when we would elect Walesa, he would negotiate with the communist government, you make a deal. A week later, you would break the deal, have another compromise, negotiate, break another deal, keep breaking the deals until there's nothing left to negotiate. And I said, I've never lived under a communist regime, and if that is a very civil way to throw over a communist regime, I guess you did it well. But it has nothing to do with negotiations. Is that what you can do with Lech Walesa? Make a deal with them and immediately break it? And I got a little applause from that. Okay, got a little applause from that. At lunchtime, I was told that the translator said, "This man claims you know nothing about negotiations." He was not going to repeat me verbatim on that. But we had a great time with them, and I loved working with them. And then, lo and behold, I was in Pakistan with the Judicial College. It was then negotiated for 18 months. Oh, in Poland, we did a lot of work with the Helsinki Foundation for Human Rights, 3 years of work there. And then negotiated for 18 months with the Foreign Ministry in Cuba for us to work with them.
To do what?
They said, "Well, you can come down here for a day." I said, "I can come down for a day. Either we're there for 5 years or we're not down there at all." And I said, from what you said, I really want to help you in the they had no negotiation classes at all for any of their staff in the foreign ministry, whatever, none. And
So
I
if-
said,
if they
I
ever-
would like to help you develop your own curriculum material. That's yours, you know. So finally,
You mean when they were dealing with the Russians, they had no way of they have no foundation on which to negotiate.
they negotiated like I negotiated.
Yeah, right. Seat of the pants.
Seat of the pants, and could you remember what you did wrong, or could you remember what you did right? You know, I mean, it was hard to recall those things. And so finally, they said we could go down there, and God, it was. I mean, just like when I was in Nicaragua, I realized that my country did not always tell the truth to me, because they were saying they get no political news in Nicaragua, and I'm here at this marvelous hotel, and I'm watching Elliot Abrams on the who was ambassador, and he's on McNeil there damning the United States, you know, and not damning the United States, damning Nicaragua, and I'm saying, I'm in a Nicaraguan hotel watching this guy do that, you know. Well, when we went to Cuba, you know, got in there and like, oh, this is going to be really bad, and the first thing we come across is a police officer who has arrested somebody for speeding. And the police officer's writing out the ticket, and the driver's going, da 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 da. He look up, yeah, try something new. I've heard that one before. It's just like America, right? Lovers holding hands. Went in a church, went to a synagogue. This isn't staged. A lot of people in there, you know. My country's saying they don't have freedom of religion, and like, you know, and I know they don't have the political freedoms I have, but it is not exactly the way it's been portrayed to me, or you hear the people on the talk shows, whatever. So anyway, after the first hour, we're going to take a break, and Dr. Garcia, tremendous man. He was a classmate of Fidel in college. He went on to medical school.
And he's the head of the foreign ministry.
After the revolution, Castro says, I want you to develop the health thing for us. He develops the health program for Cuba. Now we're going to reward you. They make him ambassador to Spain for 8 years. He can jump ship. He doesn't do that. He's loyal. He comes back. He's going to retire. Castro says, no, you need to develop a graduate school for our diplomats and stuff. And so, very important man. Calls all my staff by their first name except me. Lincoln, right? So after the first hour, he says, Lincoln, in my office downstairs, bring your staff. Like, I don't know what we did, but we did something wrong. You know, I mean, it just was clear. We went in, we got in his office. Don't sit down, you're not going to be here long. I said, oh, Jesus. And he's behind his desk. He says, okay, when are we going to schedule other programs? 1 hour. It's like, don't you want to finish the program and then decide, you know? He's very impressed with what we did. And we will continue to work there until the Bush administration said no, you know? And we had to get a license to do that. So
You weren't going through Mexico.
no, he had to get a license so our company could do that. So I went to the federal. One day I was at the Federal Executive Institute, and I spotted the name of one of my students, and she's the one who signed the letter. And in fact, I called the office to make sure, and Paulie Polo said, "Yeah, that's the name." So after class, I said, "Hey, I just want to thank you. She worked for the Treasury. That's the one who has to give you the license, and that you gave the license to work in Cuba." She says, I know who you are. She says, and then she exaggerates. It didn't hurt that you had 100 senators and about 50 House representatives writing letters saying that you should do this. And we didn't have that. We had maybe 10 senators and 15, 20 reps do it, you know. But she remembered. That's just why she took the course. She wanted to see what we really did. And then Sudan and Afghanistan. I mean, I don't know when to end this stuff.
But yeah, no, well, this is important background. So, yeah, and people just you have an international reputation now, basically.
No, Sudan called. In fact, Mayor Lease received a call in the office. He said, "Bill, are you interested in doing any work in the Sudan?" And I said, "Yeah, I really would like to do that." You know, now this is a time that in the Middle East and stuff, and Arabs, I mean, hostages are being taken all over the place. And so we're talking to this guy named Gore, and and I said, I'll make a deal with you. Okay, we're going to pay our own airfare over there. You put us up enough food and lodging, and we'll see what we do. And wow, we arrived there. They had a big inauguration for us. You know, the vice president there. So, oh God, and in the training program they had.
And what was to train what?
They just wanted to be exposed to conflict resolution in a way. I said, this is not going to be applicable to you in a cultural way at all. Okay, I don't have any exercises that are made I have no Sudan illustrations. I have no time to really prepare for this, none, you know. And they accepted that, and they asked a lot of questions, and we learned a lot. And then one of the participants was from the foreign ministry and said, I want you to develop a special program for our foreign ministry, which we did. And I mean, we came back 2 months later and had a very specialized program for them. And then the council churches. And I told the government, I said, we're going to do it. You know, I mean.
You told the U.S. government?
No, told the Sudanese government. I said, you're probably not going to like it, but I mean, they've asked for it. They're really your friends. They're dealing with 100,000 internally displaced persons. If you're going to have peace, you're going to have to deal with them, and they want it. And that was very, very interesting because during the training, I had to say to some of them, you know, do you realize that Bashir is as committed to his religion as you are to yours? You're not any more devout than he is, you know. And they said, well, you don't understand Arabs. They try to indoctrinate our children. They try to teach them the Quran. They try to proselytize. They say, whoa, you're going too fast. So they're doing to your kids what you really want to do to theirs, aren't you? And some of them started laughing, and they said, yeah. And so, I mean, I feel very comfortable in terms of that kind of stuff, and then getting back to the training and whatnot. And we just got a call from the Sudan 2 weeks ago. Would we go and work with them and help put pressure on it so Bashir isn't exported to the International Criminal Court? I said, no, I can't do that. You know, first of all, since the United States did not join the International Criminal Court, they shouldn't be supporting such a move at all, you know, or just they should just stay out of it. And second of all, if you want us to work with you to, how do we improve relationships between your country and our country, that's a different story. But I'm not going to deal with the International Criminal Court or Bashir or anything of that nature. So the last time we were over there, Bashir had allowed us to work with the leaders of all the opposition political parties, including the Communist Party. We had them all for about 8 days. It was fantastic. And the interesting thing about it, they knew they weren't going to win any election. But on matters of human rights and justice and stuff, all these parties running against each other, they were not going to have a conflicting platform on those issues. They may suggest, I can do it better than you can, but they're all going to be on a human rights platform. They're all going to be on an environmental platform. They're all going to be on an equal justice platform. And we thought that was great. And then in Afghanistan, as you know, we've been fooling around with the warlords and stuff. And Aziz just back. Aziz is our contact. He lives in Monroe. He's head of the World Trade Center in Kabul, which doesn't do much trade. But he's been over there for the last 6 months, just every day working with Abdullah, you know, the big opponent to Karzai, and going to have supper with him next Wednesday. And I'm sure I left some of those places out.
But that's okay.
You know,
That gives you
get the idea.
I just wanted to go through your background, your childhood, your training, and lack of it, and then your on-the-job experience and kind of how one thing leads to another.
Well, it's been interesting to get some on the credential thing. Pepperdine is, if you get the annual award for excellence in Pepperdine, it's a very big thing in our profession. And I believe I'm the only non-attorney. It's from the law school. I'm the only non-attorney who's ever gotten that award. And then I got, the next year I got the Mediator of the Year from the International Academy of Mediators, which totally shocked me that I would ever even be thought of for that.
And this is When you say international, is it the kind of primarily Western, or is it?
But they have yeah, Canadian, Mexico, few. I think they got England on there.
Okay,
But
okay.
anyway,
Yeah.
and then
And you were the honored.
yeah, I got it, and then I got Distinguished Alum of the Year from my divinity school, the only non-ordained person ever to get it. I said, this is cool. Then I got an honorary doctorate from my college course, which was nice. But now this one from Russia, to me, is very, very,
Talk a little bit about that.
very important. Well, they're giving an award to me, and they emphasize I am the first
This is
one.
the University of St. Petersburg.
St. Petersburg, formerly Leningrad, for having done the most to advance conflictology in their nation. And there's a Congress of Conflictologists that meets every 5 years, and I think they're going to give it annually. The university has decided they're going to give it annually, and this is the first one that they're ever giving. So they said it's a little confusion here, like, why are we giving it to a foreigner? And they said, because
He started
Sasha
the program.
Said, well, Sasha said it's either a statue or a medallion. Which do you want? So I thought it was a cute answer. So, and they're going to give Dawn Hooper. You met Dawn, I think, yeah. They're going to give her one too. This time they're going to give 2 awards, and they said because she became a deputy director of that program as well. So it's great. So we're going to fly over there together.
I don't know who Don Hooper is, but that's okay.
Oh, yeah, it's been a hell of a trip. You know, it's.
You got questions?
I think it would help to have the we clarified when you talk about we're in the Sudan and we're working with these folks and we're running back and forth. Is it one guy and a secretary? Is it 3 students that you've mentored? What's the process?
No, for example, and some people I've used, my associates or my staff, that I have even sent them sometimes places without me. I mean, it's not always Bill. I mean, I've used Bob Barry and several people in Cuba without me, and several people in Poland. You know, I did a lot of work in Poland. I also said I can't go this time. I had them do it. But like in Sudan, Paulie's been there several times. Paulie's been in Afghanistan several times. Bob Barry's been in Afghanistan and Sudan several times. I mean, so it's.
Why don't you give us the credentials for the name of the organization? It's the Center for Conflict Resolution, CR.
Oh, CRI.
Yeah.
There's the Conflict Resolution Research and Resource Institute, CRI. I just dissolved that after all these years because.
But that's who the we was.
That's the we was, yeah. And now what I've done is, and I haven't changed the website yet, but now CRI is a department of TLI, the Lincoln Institute, which is a one-button phone. I just incorporated, so CRI still exists because it has a good name out there, but it's no longer a nonprofit organization on that.
But freezing this moment in time, is there work going now that you either started under the auspices of CRI or TLI that is currently happening in the world somewhere?
It's happening in Afghanistan. It's happened in Sudan. It's happening in Russia. And I've got to finish responding to Ambassador McDonald's next Cuba proposal on why I don't think it's going to work and what he should do instead.
Ambassador to Cuba.
No, he's a former ambassador. He has the Institute of Multi-Track Diplomacy, very big. He and I have done a lot of work together, and he's got a proposal that would be funded by USAID. And I said, Cuba will never accept it if it's funded by USAID. It means throwing over the regime. And we can handle it another way. So
you'll go to him with an alternative way of funding or moving the money through some other organization.
Well, there's an organization made up of the private sector that want the embargo to end, and I think we should go to them and say, pretty cheap proposal, you know. And so I think we'll write something for them.
Mm-hmm. Okay. We're making a transition. We have had Bill's. The story about his background, his upbringing, his training or lack of training formally, his on-the-job training, and we would now want to talk to Bill about everything he's learned being distilled into his thoughts about a program on conflict resolution, and this dream that he brought to us to create an institute at the University of Washington, Tacoma.
And can we also have a clarification about conflictology? if that is just a term that's used in Soviet Union or Russia, or whether it has a universal meaning.
It was used in Russia as a study of conflict, and Jim Lowy of George Mason University, now deceased, he began to use the term, but he also used it in a limited way, i.e. the study of conflict. He just liked the idea of it. And we've documented saying, guys, that's not what you're doing, okay? Conflictology is the study of conflict in terms of its theories, its processes, its costs, and its consequences, as well as is in terms of the theories and processes as far as prevention, management, and resolution, or I should say theory, processes, and skills. And so really conflictology is, I mean, I have the thing written out, even in some of the stuff I send UWT, I mean, that's what it is. And I really have problems with programs that say, oh, we give you a master's in conflict resolution. I say, why? Because people need to know how to negotiate. They say, well, the vast amount of negotiations is not conflict resolution, it's conflict prevention. We simply call it planning. And then the second most frequent use of negotiations, again, it's not conflict resolution, it's conflict management. How do you prevent a bad situation from becoming worse? And conflict resolution gets this much, but it's important. It's the big stuff. It's dangerous stuff, whatever. And it would be good in a class to say, well, why don't we look in terms of the difference between chaos and crisis and dispute and conflict. I mean, actually what we're trying to do is we're trying to transform a lot of conflict into disputes. You look in the dictionary, conflict really talks about volatility and emotion, and dispute is more rational, and et cetera, et cetera. So anyway, the conflictology, I think, your program at St. Petersburg, it's not the study of conflict. It's a study of conflict in a broader sense, what causes it, and what are the things to prevent, manage, and resolve it, from theory to skills. And I would hope, and I don't know if I have a dream, but I certainly have a vision on how to fulfill a need, and we can talk about why UWT. But I really think that the school ought to be different from the start. And I would suggest that they actually use the term conflictology and define it what it is, right? I mean,
Set the standard.
This is Catholic, and so this is universal, this is broad, this is comprehensive. This is what we do. We don't just do conflict analysis, as some schools have that title. We teach conflictology from beginning to end, and so there should be some real distinct parts of that.
Did that evolve over time? When you first began the program at St. Petersburg, did you have this universal concept?
No. I said over probably vodka. I'm not a big drinker at all, but probably over vodka one time. I said, Jesus, you do much more. And I think I came up with the definition. Sasha said, write it down. And then we started dealing with that. And how much has got incorporated, I don't know. But
this is over the years. Or
no.
did you, right at the beginning, you said it's...
No. This was I probably did this 10 years ago.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
So from a 30,000-foot perspective, make your wish, express your vision. What will this project look like? How will it operate, and what will be its output? What will be its product?
And why is it different? That's what I want to get. Why is this program different, and in what ways, than what might be offered out in the rest of the world?
I want this program to have an authenticity that I don't think many of the schools have. And the authenticity is in terms of its very purpose, and in terms of the outcomes that they want to have. And in some of this language you've heard before, because I've written it, we are living in a world that is filled with conflict, and it's going to get a lot worse and a lot more volatile, and the consequences are going to be a lot more severe, whether you're talking about the environment, whether you're talking about social economic classes or whatever, on that. And I think that people, no matter what vocation they're in, they need to be able to have skills and a commitment in terms of how to prevent, manage, and resolve conflict. whether it's fairness in the workplace, which is not my biggest interest, whether it's in terms of natural and environmental resource management, which is important to me but not my biggest interest, whether it's in terms of racial and ethnic relations, which is very, very important. I've participated in that an awful lot on it, whether it's just in terms of equity in society, but it needs to happen on it. And my biggest interest is in the international scene on it. But it's just not a program. They've got to be committed into the fact that they are going to produce practitioners who are competent, credible, and confident. I put those three C's together. I want them confident. I know what it's like to go and dispute and not be confident. Like, what am I doing here? But fine. So those three things are very, very important to me. And I think they ought to also be producing students and have an emphasis that it's going to enhance best practices. I mean, I'm dogmatic because I have a dogma. You can take it. People have asked me for stuff. We'll attribute this to you, some of your curriculum. I said, you can use my curriculum, take my name off of it. Because it's so old, I don't want to be associated with it. We've grown beyond that. The things that we're doing now in conflict prevention, management, resolution have got to be considered as embryonic 10 years from now. They have to be. Just like medicine. My God, we don't do that anymore. And so they've got to be committed to enhancing best practices on again, and I'll always be saying conflict prevention, management, and resolution on that.
This innovative aspect aside, what are other programs that are attempting to do conflict management or resolution doing that it is wrong or outmoded or not responsive to your point?
Well, this is the third piece, I guess, is you really need to close the gap between theory and practice or application experience. You really need to close that gap on it. Because I look at some of the curricula in very fine schools, Harvard and George Mason, whatever, and it's so heavily academic. I mean, it needs to have academic excellence, and no doubt about it. You have to. You're an academic institution. Okay, fine. But to be spending so much time in terms of the theory of conflict and the theory of analysis and the theory, I mean, you can shrink that down tremendously.
Do any of these schools study the cost of conflict? Do any schools?
Well, they do studies on it too. I mean, is it a political cost? Is it an economic cost? Is it an environmental cost?
Is there anybody who's using
not
broad
thoroughly
conflictology perspective?
I don't want to say no. Somebody maybe say yes, but to the thoroughness that I would like to have it seen done, I would say it's lacking. Even if it's lacking in the fact that, okay, it's not practical, it's not applicable because it's not understood by the practitioner, the real practitioner.
Is St. Petersburg doing it?
St. Petersburg, at any program you have to recognize that conflict resolution is just a part of an interdisciplinary social science, right? I mean, you got to have sociology, psychology, economics. I mean, you have to have those things. I think St. Petersburg did an amazing thing in terms of, well, there's another component here, and this will lead into it. You really got to evaluate the program. You just can't do what the brochures are that were in the stars, And evaluations, it means including in terms of what didn't work that well and why. And St. Petersburg University took one of their major programs, and they asked me to help them write the article on it, and it just got printed in a book, and it says an 85% settlement rate, a 91% compliance rate. That for most 99% of colleges, that would be the end of the article. Not St. Petersburg, what happened to the rest? And the whole study is, how come 15% didn't settle? How come we got settlements and 9% didn't hold up? That, to me, is a responsible institution on it. You're never going to get to best practices, you go to a mediation conference.
You mean that's always a goal? It's ephemeral. We're working towards it.
It's not a goal. It's a standard that you're going to do right down all the time.
But wait a minute. You said you'll never.
Oh, I see. It's one of the. it's a commitment that you're making. One of the purposes, we are going to evaluate. We're going to be honest about it.
And we're going to evolve it.
Absolutely, to find out what works, what didn't work. Don't throw out what didn't work. Find out why it didn't work. Kind of situation on that.
Some of our audience, Bill, is going to be a 22-year-old just finishing a bachelor's degree program in poli-sci or some other social science. Talk to that human being for a minute for us and tell that human being or that person how this curriculum is going to continue his or her training. What will it equip him to do? How will it be different? What should he expect from it if he enrolls in this practicum or this?
Well, because I would start from this, like, why are you even enrolling in this class? Why do you want it? Yes, you do. Come on, don't be afraid to tell. Come on, let's go. And I just keep on asking, find it like that. And sometimes, because I want to understand, hey, good answer, creative answer. Never heard it before. Never said it before. I love it. Situation on it. So I really can't answer that question until I get an inkling what they want to do with it. Okay, but I first want to shrink their expectations, saying, if you think you're going to take this course, get a certificate, and settle the Middle East dispute, it's probably not going to happen. You're probably not going to be a Richard Holbrooke. Somebody will be, but it probably won't be you. However, if you want to have fulfillment that you are a practitioner, and people respect the fact that you are really a catalyst on how to prevent, manage, resolve conflict, either in the private sector or the public sector, or for ecology, or for community development, or with Indian tribes, or in Afghanistan with warlords. This is for you. This is what you want. You will know you're good. You'll know you're damn good, and people will tell you are. Just don't use it too much. Just don't blow your own horn on the situation, right? I mean, but I think right from the start at UW2, if you're going to be different, then you have to start out differently, right from the start. From the title that you use, from the purposes that you use, from the fact that you're going to use this kind of this commitment to evaluate, that you're going to close the gap, that you are going to have a very meaningful supervised field experience, right? This is not going to be like George Mason, which doesn't give you any skills training at all. If you want a PhD, you go to George Mason to get it in conflict resolution. Great school, great people, love them all, right? Do you want skills training? Then you go down to the local dispute resolution center where they do divorces and trailer park stuff like that, and you can take a weekend course down there. Oh, we do have field experiences, Bill. They have to work for 2 weeks with either people with HIV or the homeless. Well, I think
the George Mason program.
Yeah, I think that's meritorious. I don't know what the hell it has to do with a real field experience, or John Hopkins. We assign you to a federal agency, and for an entire semester, and then you have to write a white paper. Terrific experience. It's not what I'm thinking of. I'm thinking in that you're going to have. My preference would be you're going to have an entire semester, in a well, let me use the international. You're going to have an entire semester in terms of Afghanistan, and you're going to be working with a coalition of warlords, or you're going to be working with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, or you're going to be in ecology. You're going to have that. I don't care if you hold their horses. Okay, you're going to have a cross-cultural experience, and you're not going to offer much except ask questions. So why would you do that?
It could be a whole different division of the Peace Corps.
It
would be at the university level here. It would be in the field, actual hands-on experience.
Absolutely. And I doubt if you'll be mediating as such, but you'll be mediating indirectly, as I do with them, saying, well, Gore, I just want to ask you one question. Okay, did you expect them to accept your proposal? Yeah, I really did. Yeah. Why didn't they? And I know what he's going to say, but most people, what my clients say, because he's stupid and insensitive, he's, stubborn, he's a craphead, okay, fine, let's get through that. Why didn't they do that, Well, they probably thought it would be too time-consuming. Where would they get that idea? They probably thought it would be too expensive. Tell me, Dr. Gore, where would they get that idea to be too expensive, right, They probably thought I was uncooperative. Good, good, good. Yeah. Why would they say that? Because you swore at them in English? I mean, you're mediating, and all you've done is ask questions. Ask questions, you know. But they would have that experience, and they will know, I got it. It'd be the Gestalt. I got it. I got it. I know how to do it. I got it. And that's what I want them to come out of. I got it. Not that you spent 6 months, that you got it.
That's the confidence building part.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about the faculty that might find this process a bit different from what they're used to. You're talking about a qualitative and a richer experiential model that has this field placement in it. How is that different for the faculty that you're used to the current model for conflict management in most universities or programs?
The faculty has got to prepare them for that experience. It is more than you're teaching your course. You're preparing them for that experience that's really going to make them a practitioner. They probably couldn't be a good practitioner without your course, whether it's sociology or theory of conflict. They probably wouldn't be as good, you know. But you're preparing them for that, you know, as much as you're preparing them for catechism. I mean, you're about mitzvah. You're preparing them, you know, and I think they have got to be absolutely solid that they are an incredibly important ingredient to this program beyond academic excellence, right? And I think that would excite them, and they'd feel joyful once that they tasted that. And I think it's an incomplete program if it doesn't offer faculty now and then unique opportunities. I don't care if it's 2 weeks, you know, that you're going to see what that person's doing in Cuba or whatever. But I mean, whenever we took a board member overseas with us, what a hell of a board member they came back at, you know. If the faculty were to taste some of the stuff that they were doing, I don't care if they were doing an internship at Microsoft. When you see what's going on and what's happening there, there'll be a far better faculty member for this program, all right? I can't teach them anything, but they could certainly get exposed to some good stuff on that. But they've got to close that gap between theory and practice. Now let's look at the arenas too. I don't look at it in terms of generic training as much as eclectic training, so that I see the program going it could go in a couple directions, but they're missing. UWT would be missing a market if they weren't taking or appealing to the young man or woman who has just become the business officer for a union, or the police officer who is now going to become sergeant or even captain, and how do I apply this there? Or I'm in human resources, you know, and a private corporation. So you have those vocational foci that there's an audience there. And a big part of that audience is right from Olympia in terms of public sector people on it. But I think you get a broader audience on that as well. And so there's a whole possibility that you're doing two things. One, you're giving that kind of so-called executive MA that you see, that you basically takes them, a year to get, and they just focus in terms of something like this, as well as in terms of the student who is an undergraduate student, and they've majored in, and they're taking all these other stuff, and they're going to be a nurse. But now you're given some basic courses in conflict resolution, which nurses can use all the time. You know, that teachers can use all the time. You know, that law, somebody going into judicial all the time, right? That's at an undergraduate level. But I would want no part of a UWT plan if they wanted to start off by saying, well, we're going to start off small and have what you just described, Bill, in terms of our undergraduate level. I'll say, I will buy that as long as you got a 3-year plan or a 4-year plan with different milestones that you're going to this other area here.
And
why
do you not want to be part of it, and why would you buy it?
Well, because it's incomplete to me. Is that fine? I think it's a great service. Want to one of these people is head of the social work thing at UWT. I think it's a great service to train somebody, an undergraduate who's in social work, and you're going to give them conflict prevention, management, resolution skills that are applicable to their vocation. I think it's a fantastic thing. And I think it's great in terms of doing it, with people in journalism, and they'll write better stories and faster stories and more accurate stories. I think it's great to do it in terms of labor management, whatever. I think it's great, all right? I'm also looking in terms of the fact that you're going to open the door for master's degree for people who really want to be practitioners. Now, what's a practitioner? You may work for an NGO. You may work for the International Red Cross. You may work in a post-conflict society. There's tons of work there. Wherever you use the term mediator or negotiator, whatever, you're a staff person in an NGO working, in volatile situations, whether it be the inner city or whether it be in terms of overseas. I think that's my primary interest on it, and that's what the school would have to do.
But it would also be interdisciplinary. It would study.
Oh, absolutely.
It would be sociology, psychology, economics, history, and you'd weave all of these in so that somebody has a full understanding of conflict, and study conflictology. That's your.
If they had an elective called conflict and conflict resolution themes in classical and Western literature, I'd say fantastic.
Right.
You're going to learn an awful lot from that.
You bet.
Absolutely. You could do it with drama. Taste it is what I want them to do, but I want them to be practitioners.
In the very pure, simple sense of what does it take from day one to day end of a program, a student who's either got the initial degree and starts with that foundation already covered, would it be 18 months before this student is done and ready to go out there and practice? Would it be 2 years?
I think that the school would have to decide that. I would say that you're going to get a 2-year master's program. It's going to be a 2-year master's program, which basically is 18 months as a rule. But they usually at the master's, they have to write their thesis, right? So fine. Now you've got May through September to do your field work, and this is supervised field work with teleconferencing. Now you can supervise them every week. Though I think there should be where it can be one site visit at least on that situation. We developed a packet for PLU that had here are the responsibilities of the field placement officer who's looking at alternatives and stuff. Here are the responsibilities of the site supervisor, like Dr. Gore in Sudan, or Sasha Kapenko in Russia. Here are your responsibilities. This is a contract. These are our students. Do not let us down. Do not let them down. This is very, very important. And it's also here are the responsibilities of the student, on that. And there'll be a self-assessment as well as an evaluation process. There has to be on that situation, on that. But
so the field work would be maybe in lieu of a thesis, or
I still think that they have to write up something.
Okay.
Not what I did last summer. It's got to be substantive. Because my question would be is that this is very interesting about your experience, but I don't know what you learned from it. I know you told me what you did, but I don't know what you learned from it, and I don't know how it has enhanced best practices. So you did something that advanced the field.
What was
and I'm not signing off until you tell me what it was. You're going to have to think about it. I know they did it. Just think about it. Well, I didn't want to say anything, but you got it. That's fine. But you have to do that, all right? And we want to record those things. And that's an interesting way. We need to test that now. We need to test that
Or
with
if
other
something
people.
fails, you need to
Absolutely.
do that. You could learn more from a failure than you can from a success.
We had a situation in Russia where one of our guys was really, really nervous, and I said to him in front of our other colleagues, I don't understand why you're so panicked. All you can do is fail. That's all you can do, and fine. So when Sasha first started out his training, he bombed, and my colleagues, Russian Americans, say, Bill, you got to be kind to to Sasha. Okay, I mean, this is not going well at all. They keep looking back like, when are you going to step into something? I mean, please be kind to him, because I mean, he knows this is not going well. I said, I'll be kind. So he finished his lecture, we're breaking for lunch, and I put my arm around him. I said, Sasha, I just want to tell you, my friend, that is the worst damn performance I have ever seen in my life. And he laughed and and he skipped lunch because he was on the afternoon. And I didn't take him off stage. I want him to feel, I, Sasha Kopenko, will never put myself in this situation again. And he's grateful. No rescue. No rescue. He's a fantastic lecturer. He has a PhD. He's head of this program of conflictology, you know. So why did it fail? Now, you ask mediators. You go to a conference of mediators, it's a riot, Nancy. Okay, you sit down. We're polite. You're telling me about your case. I have no interest in your case. I'm just waiting you to finish so I can tell you about my case. You know, I mean, they do that all the time. It's crazy. I can't stand it. And if they didn't get a settlement, it was an external force.
Oh, sure.
Oh, with the wind or what the hell it was. But I mean, like, mediators never fail. I mean, come on, guys. I mean, what could we have done differently? I've had failures. I mean, we build up reputation just like judges. Like, Jesus, I'll never use Lincoln again on that one. Like, well, I mean, you contributed to the failure too, mister, you know, but it's fine. So anyway, back to that question. But I think they need to come out of the chute saying we're going to be different. I really want them. Let me tell you one reason why I'm getting this award. I can see it. With 22 schools now having master's degrees in Russia, and St. Petersburg getting a lot of credit, and now they really kind of run the consortium and things of this sort. That's great. They're saying, we're going to be just one of 22 schools. And they've decided, by golly, we're going to distinguish ourselves right here. We'll be the one school that's going to give an honor or an award, you know, to the foreigner that has done the most in the last umpty-dumpty years, and in 5 years we're going to give another one. And I mean, fine. I think this school ought to say, by God, we're going to do a couple of things right there. One is we're going to have the U.S. Institute of Peace, which has never been out here. We're going to negotiate with them, and they're going to have a Northwest Conference out here every single year. You know, just like you had Carvel out here speaking. By God, we're going to have him here. And another thing we're going to do, which will be a dinner and award thing, we're going to give an award out to somebody known like Holbrook or somebody. I mean, somebody who's really done something in conflict man. It could be the private sector, it could be the national sector, you know. But I mean, you're just going to claim that this is our territory, you know, on that. And I don't mean from our community. We got the peace community here. That's the Norwegian group there. That's great. That's fine. I say, no, you're going to bring in Richard Holbrook, you know, or you know, somebody, you know, big like that, you know. And
Would you talk a little bit about what the idyllic condition is of a university that has the program in place and which, like all universities, wants to be a paragon, a highly regarded and respected institution for which this program has become sort of a crown jewel? What will it be that happens other than this the capacity of the school to always go back and innovate and learn from its own mistakes and turn out graduates with practicum experience in the field? What will be the magnet piece that will draw bright young people?
well,
to
I'm going to add. I'm going to answer a little indirectly.
Okay.
Okay. Don't be discouraged in the fact that you're never going to be Harvard in the negotiation. Don't be discouraged. Okay, that's fine. That they're there.
But Harvard doesn't have a strong practical.
Well, they write a lot of. I mean, they give it a lot of their publishing is done by students with faculty's names on it, but no, they don't have. I wouldn't regard it as a kind of a strong program.
They also don't have a practicum. You said
in the field.
in the field.
Yeah.
They didn't when we had the study. I don't know if they have it now. Okay, it's easy for Harvard to go anywhere. If they want to go into Nepal, they'll be in Nepal. All right, that's fine. So fine, let them be in. We're talking about in terms of the Northwest. We want to be above and the program's getting better all the time down at the University of Oregon in Eugene. I know the folks down there. Um, but they keep on asking me, can you place our students? Can you place our students? And I can. I mean, because I don't really have the time to do that. So they're looking for those things to do. I would like, if I understood your question right, I want to see no less than quarterly some good publications. I don't care if it's just a pamphlet of what was learned. Maybe it comes out once a year in terms of the students, in terms of lessons and learned and enhancement, or some research projects. All chances for research and whatever. But I want the student to come here excited to know that they are going to be absolutely terrific. When you go to McGill University, you're going to come out as a hell of a surgeon, whatever. Okay, I want them to know that, and I would start this course off quite differently than I would have them. I would give them a week's skill building workshop. That's what I would do. Like, that would excite them so much that they'll give more attention to theory and everything else. Like, wow, the first week we're negotiators, and I'm saying it was playtime. That's what it was. Now we're going to really prepare you to be a pro on it, because you have a hell of a responsibility in doing that. I mean, I get scared all the time in terms of like particularly in environmental disputes. Like, I figure when I die, St. Peter's going to say, "You don't won't be here that long, Bill. Okay, we just want to go over a few things." It's
We won't keep you long.
oh, you used the Lord's name in vain a couple of times, and a lot of we understand that you did this and that. Okay, but the reason why you can't stay here is because that dispute that you mediated at Hanford, all right? Because in environmental disputes, you may not be able to make a mid-course correction like labor and management. We won't know for 30 years. And if we find out, we may not have the money or the technology to correct it. So you're going to hell. I mean, it's a lot of responsibility as a negotiator and mediator. And I even have a course called How Not to Be Mediated Upon, on it. So I don't know if I'm getting into your answers here at all.
What do you see the curriculum being at a master's program?
Well, I do see a lot of case studies. Now, most time when they pick case studies, they're thinking in terms of they're going to put you through simulations. No, I want them to really be able to analyze a couple of books in terms of well, even from the Camp David Accords. Study that. I want them to bring in, or at least read George Mitchell, in terms of the Ireland thing. I mean, he said he only worked one day. That's the day he got an agreement. He did a very interesting thing in terms of insisting that we will all eat together, because he understood you're gonna argue differently with your friends. Say, and that's why I can never get an agreement with you, you son of a bitch. Will you pass us all, please? I mean, it's absolutely right, And we're making a big mistake by not sitting down and talking to the Iranians over and over and over and over again, I forgot the question. Oh,
I'm very interested in the kind of course, because for instance, in business, Harvard is all case study. In Chicago, it's all theory.
Yeah.
At Stanford, it's theory with case studies to illuminate the theory. But okay, a lot of case study, I understand. But what are the courses? I mean, when you said you had a course on how not to be mediated upon, I mean, what are the kinds of courses that?
Oh, you definitely have to have, or a segment of a course. You definitely have to have one in terms of ethics and what constitutes bad faith negotiations and what constitutes good faith negotiations. You really have to do that. You definitely have to have a course in terms, and you can pull this out and make a whole new course in terms of mistakes that mediators and negotiators have made. You can definitely have major components, of course, particularly in terms of conflict aftermath. Not enough is done in conflict aftermath. That's when you think you resolved it, and all these ripple effects, and it keeps on getting even worse and worse and worse. And like we probably done more work on identifying the causes of conflict aftermath than anybody in the world. You know, it both procedurally, subtly, psychologically. You know, it on it.
So if you did a 2-year program, the first semester would be, would you have a core curriculum that they would all take? These all sound to me like they're more second year courses. What? How do you prepare them to actually
Now
appreciate?
you're talking about a master's degree or
Yeah.
what? Okay. The
And you've got a variety of students. Some are psych majors. Some are sociologists. Some are history. Some may be English majors. Some are coming back after 5 years in the workplace, and they're in human resources, and they see something that they want to do, or they've been working in the police department, and they want to work with gangs or whatever it might be. You've got a variety of backgrounds. How do you bring them up to
I
make
think
sure that they
I think
have the skills you want
yeah,
at graduation?
I think eclectic seminars are fantastic for the synergy and for preparing a student. The fact that you have someone in the same seminar that wants to be, you know, a law enforcement officer or whatever the practitioner is.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm getting a little tired here. The skills are basically the same.
Right, but what I'm
We
talking
have to
about
pay
is what are the
attention to
classes?
policy.
What are the
and we have to
classes?
pay attention.
Yeah, okay.
Okay,
So-
policy you have to relate to. We definitely have to. I would put policy and law in the same situation. I think it would be great if they were exposed to areas that they don't expect to practice in, that are important to us in terms of the effects of climate change on greater society, and by that I mean the world. It's very, very important to me now that the military is beginning to look at this seriously, because if this is not handled correctly, how are we going to be able to guarantee our own security and at the same time be a decent world citizen in terms of the equitable distribution services? Because some people are going to be in a lot of trouble, and I think they ought to be looking in terms of conflict and conflict resolution themes in the literature. I think they need to have real courses in cross-cultural relevancy, cross-cultural application, cross-cultural communications. I think they have to have really, really tough courses in terms of communications, you know. And when I say tough courses, I mean not only how to do it, but all the obstacles to communication. I think they should be doing a lot of analysis of case studies and what worked, what didn't work, what would you do differently.
Well, like a
Yeah.
history of conflict and conflict resolution?
I hope to be doing with a Georgetown professor. I hope to be writing. He's ready for me. I'm not ready to do it yet, but we've been talking about. I'd be a contributing editor on wars that were never fought. You know, I think it'd be a great theme. And he's at Georgetown, and we have a little disagreement in terms of, are we going to look at it international, or are we also going to look at labor wars that were never fought, environmental wars that were never fought, because people negotiated it. It might even have been a crisis, but they negotiated what worked, what didn't work, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, you know.
Would you have a sociology class? Would you have a psychology class?
I would only have sociology. It was the sociology of conflict.
Yep. Or would you have a psychology?
It depends. You may be able to take a course and say this course is going to deal. The first half is going to deal with the sociology of conflict. And the second half is going to deal with the psychology of conflict. Mm-hmm. Another one is in terms of the book called Conflict Resolution with Primitive Societies. I think it's great. Mm-hmm. One of the things that Americans have got to get over: you're not the best in this stuff. You know, you didn't invent it. You know, I always tell my class at the beginning that this all began with either Paleolithic or Neolithic cave dwellers. I can't remember which. You know, but that's where it started. You fish, I'll get the berries. All right. I mean, and people were happy when it worked out, and fine. So I think it's important that they look at that.
Would you think out loud a bit about what you've experienced in your prior attempts to bring this idea to existing institutions? A, what did they not seem to understand, or what did you sense were the barriers to its buy-in or its adoption? what were the stopping points?
I was the biggest barrier because I didn't have a PhD. Whether it was at Evergreen, whether it was at WSU, whether it was UWT the first time, I didn't have a PhD. So what did I know? What did I
You have a problem? No.
No.
You just
All right.
okay.
what? So that was one barrier right there. The
Second,
second,
people just didn't take you seriously.
I didn't have a PhD. How the hell can I offer
Credentials.
them anything?
Just the
Yeah,
credentials.
but even the ideas, the experience, the background, the knowledge, the scar tissue.
So,
Doesn't
couldn't get
matter.
past it. Second thing is that I think is that they didn't understand it. They didn't understand it, and that's why I made the offer, which Pat and this other guy, I forget his name, liked, was that we'll put on a 5-day. Doesn't even have to be 5 days in a row. We'll put on this 5-day program in negotiations at the totally free. In fact, we'll use a curriculum that we use with the to prepare all the parties for the Guatemala peace talks, and we would. I mean, we're really excited. I think they would really get excited about it. That it is so depthy, you know. And I don't think they know where to start. You know, on a course of this sort. I mean, but see, you don't have to hire a whole lot of faculty. They got people who teach sociology. I know what they pay PLU for someone to take off in the summer to write up a new syllabus for a new course. It's not that much money. I mean, if they make $5,000 for developing a new course for the summer, that's a lot of money. All right, so they could do the sociology of conflict. They do the psychology of conflict. That they could do in terms of adapting something that they got in communications right now. They could do something in terms of anthropology. They could do something in art. I mean, you don't have to hire a whole bunch of new professors. You have to figure how is this going to work? How is this going to fit in? I mean, absolutely you have to do that. And there's another thing that should happen. When they hire someone, I suggest
As
that
the
they,
head of the institute.
yeah, I suggest that they get someone who is fairly well known, former ambassador maybe, you know, but who is committed not to be a practitioner, already has the scars. If you get someone who wants to be an active practitioner, they're going to neglect this program and they're going to run to all these countries and and I got to be, you know, give great credibility to the school. And by the way, I'm making another $100,000 while I meet. I mean, it's not going to work. So somebody with those credentials, but you know, and hopefully a good name in the field, and maybe they publish or whatever that situation. I also think, you know, and I've written this down. You know that this is not a job I'm interested in. You know, I'm beginning to feel that I'm, you know, 10 months I'm 70. So, I mean, I'm out of this thing here. But if I was raising money for this thing, I would say, even though we're not starting the master's program and the field placement program for 3 years, we're hiring this person. She or he is important that they are on right away, and they are shaping this program, and they're giving a name to this program, and people are waiting in anticipation for it to kick off. And I mean, I wouldn't try to raise a dime for this unless I saw that there's going to be a master's program and it's in the plan, and I think it could be done. I really do. And
How would these students get field experience 20 years from now? What kinds of institutions would the University of Washington Tacoma be aligning itself with so that these kids could get supervised field experience?
20 years from now,
10 years from now, 5 years from now.
I still think it's going to be NGOs. I still think it's going to be governmental agencies, whether there are a government or whether the United Nations or whether it's Uganda.
And how will we get these organizations to say yes, we'll take them on? Because a lot of them don't want the liability.
Well, these things have to be worked out in terms of the field placement packet, in terms of where can we get liability insurance for this? Where can we? I mean, even in Russia and the visa, they need to know that. And they don't know anything about my health, but I had a sign of that. Yep, I'm in charge of all my medical costs that I have there. You know, and I have insurance that'll cover it in overseas, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, all those things have to be worked out. I think that you'll find out the foreign institutions will they'll want the assistance. They'll want the help on that very much so. I don't think that's a problem placing. And I think a lot of our people that would train it, they would find jobs immediately with USAID. Immediately with USAID. All right, and on it. To me, the school that may be competing with us now, and I don't like that word, but the one that I hold in pretty high esteem is the one in Brattleboro, Vermont. It used to be the School for International Living, and they train everybody.
SIT.
Huh?
It's called SIT,
Yes, what
Students for International Training.
Yeah, it's a great program.
Yeah,
It's also on the East Coast.
yeah.
You know, and I think you ought to look at in terms of that curricula. I think you definitely ought to go to Royal Roads. Royal Roads has a magnificent program, and you come there for a month, and you live on campus, and then you go away, and in a year and a half you're back for another month. Everything is done by distant learning, and boy, what a system they have. I mean, it just blows your mind. And I love that distant learning because the faculty member can press a button anytime and see if Mike has read that article, and you can only get it online, and how much time. And so he spent 20 minutes on an article that normally takes 2.5 hours to read. And that's registered. And it's also a fact, Mike, that's only going to be on for 17 days. And, well, I'll get to it. And bingo, it's gone after 17 days, and you have no access to it. And then you're also in groups, and the group's saying, my God, everyone's cooperating except Mark, in our little group. That's all you can see this on the computer. And the teachers like it. They said, you actually spend more time with a student on that way. But it makes the whole process a lot cheaper, too. More and more distant learning is going to come in here. More and more distant learning. That and teleconferencing is going to be great. I don't know. Have we got all your questions down?
I only am concerned that because you have a long history of thinking about it, writing about it, talking about it to others, that because we don't have that insight or that background with you, we could have missed or neglected some area in our questions. Is there anything that is crucial to this concept that we have somehow not gotten at here in what we've asked you?
When this program makes up its mission statement, it really has to be seriously sincere what they're going to do. I mean, I'd be checking that authenticity every step of the way. And I want an achievable business plan, no wishful thinking that this master's program keeps on getting delayed and delayed and delayed. No, okay? I'll be part of your team. We're going to raise the money for that, and it's not going to get robbed. Well, the money you raised here, the school really needs it over in this department right now because they're getting cut. No, this is the money for this program, all right? We got to be stewards of that. And I think we can really, really excite this community and on it. My one fear I have is that when we were first talking about UWT with, what was her name, Vicky or Mickey or the chancellor?
Carwine.
Vicky Carwine.
Okay, who really liked this idea. And we had a kind of a CRI day up in Seattle with friends and stuff like that. We had all our flags of the country to work in. And Vice President of Development Jack Ferris from UW was there. And he came and he said, Bill, okay, Seattle can't be left out of this. The mother can't be left out of this. This is going to be too big. And I'm going, no, this is Tacoma's. This is Tacoma's. We got to get some Tacoma people to really back this. This is it, You took Russell, you're not going to take this. So,
They took the UPS too.
Yeah.
Law school.
And they bought it.
Well, they bought Russell.
Yeah. So I don't know where to go with this now. I mean, I could answer those.
We were more interested in making sure that we had a good, solid record of how you see this program being put together.
Oh, by the way, you got one of your questions that you had that I peeked at was in terms of what about 6 advisors and stuff. The first one that came to me is that he'll be ready soon. He's going to move back to Seattle. Bob Gates, Secretary of Defense. I mean, it's great.
You have Shalis Kavili down here in Stelicum.
You absolutely.
You got Eric Olson.
I mean, you got.
In fact, he may be a great first dean.
I mean, you also have, and it wouldn't be hurt to have this to somehow relate to the program. You have Don Lucian's son.
That's Eric Olson.
Oh, is that Eric Olson?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I mean, and somebody from the military with his credentials, and then now the Navy is taking this whole thing in phase 0. What's our job to prevent war? Yeah. I mean, you've got it up here. You really do. We could really put something there, and looking at the men and women in this area on it. And your question, what would it look like, the curricula? It's not a big chore to go through looking at the syllabi of other schools that are offering masters at all. And I just
You
look
get the
more.
program out of St. Petersburg and Oregon and
I even sent Vicki what we had for St. Petersburg on it. But I'm also interested in the methodology, and that's why I'm saying distance learning is here to stay. And do it right, and
the kids in the field could be doing distance check-ins every
Oh,
week,
absolutely.
weekly updates.
Do you see 50 students? I'm just picking a number out of thin air, engaging and participating and staying with that through the degree granting to the end of the degree, and then going out and doing that work. Is it 30 people? Is it 100? What do you think is a viable?
How big would this program be?
Yeah.
Well, when you have a program like this, you're going to have to start recruiting a year in advance. And you're going to have a website really early, because that's what they're going to turn to, these kids. And you have to include in that what are the most frequently asked questions about the program, which includes this: what will I be able to do afterwards? What are the job opportunities? I mean, it's fun.
Where could I have field work?
Absolutely. Do I have to pay this for myself? And there's another whole area where people might give to, is in terms of setting up a scholarship fund that will help the students to. I mean, when you go to Sudan, it doesn't cost you a lot, all right? And you go to Russia, it doesn't cost you a lot, unless you're Moscow. Moscow's ridiculously high. But so that it's contributing to their room and board, because they're probably not going to get anything from the foreign government.
No.
Partly because you just run into all kind of complications when you start accepting money from foreign governments.
This question may sound cynical. If there was a fellowship of a $500,000 to grant, in effect, to the students who apply, just as a fact alone, all by itself, is that an important factor in creating the magnetism for the program, or can we get there a different way?
Well, that certainly would help, but I know we're in a recession, but students are still going to school, and some students will go into this if it's recruited right, if it's explained honestly, if you live up to the promises, if you attractive website. Frequently asked questions. I mean, they're going to want to be assured, and I don't know what the line is. Like I had a line when I was doing a lot of mediation and labor management, and that my line was, because I'm not a lawyer, they only want lawyers, and I said, if you want to argue law, go to court. If you want a settlement, you come to me. Okay, what's the line? I haven't got it. It's a focus, but do you really want to be a practitioner?
You got it.
Do you really want to make a difference? I mean, I love that advertisement in terms of the Peace Corps, that they have on, and how would you like to go away for a year and help someone fix a toilet and plow their field and know that you made a difference? I mean, the way they've done it is really appealing. And so they've got to know what the prize is, and keep the eyes on the prize, to use that language. They got to know what the prize is. By God, I am going to be a practitioner, whether it's in the community sector or whether it's in the international sector. But I think the two draws, quite frankly, are going to be the biggest, the international sector, and you can show them where they can get jobs, and in the situations. And I also think there's kind of a executive program where they get to, it's vocationally focused. They're not going to go overseas. They're going to,
Yeah.
they could. They said, I want to see what law enforcement does in Russia. I said, okay, you can do that. But I think those two areas are big.
Do you had a question?
Well, just clarifying the target student, because I mean, you guys refer to kids, but I don't think you view it that way
No.
necessarily. That
To view what?
that the students that you would be attracting to this program wouldn't necessarily just be fresh out of their BAs. They wouldn't necessarily be in their 20s.
No, there
they
might
could
be-
very well be mid-career.
Sure.
They could be,
You'll get some. I mean, I don't know what percentage of people. I mean, there certainly is it's a significant percentage who go from their to BA right for their MA, whether it's in teaching or whatever, or law school or whatever. But I think that there's a big piece there for the mid-career person, absolutely on that, absolutely.
Well, we want to be sensitive to your energy level, and you said a
With
minute
that
ago, you said, you were feeling a little bit tired. You want to rest for a while?
No, I was just stumbling and fumbling through a part of it because I felt inadequate to say exactly what the courses would be.
Yeah.
I have catalogs going through my mind and saying, well, that's good. Well, geez, I got nothing on cross-cultural competency. It's not cross-cultural communication, it's cross-cultural competency. I mean, let's just be honest about it, right? And so looking at that, but
I hope that it addresses what you're saying. Your actual life expresses pretty well what we're.
illuminates.
It sure does.
It illuminates the needs and what works and what doesn't work.
Yeah.
well, Kissinger's wrong. He says mediators aren't made, they're born. Baloney. All this stuff is transferable.
Huh?
It's all transferable.
There's another one.
Absolutely. Whether we all have different skills, to be sure, but it's all transferable and very teachable, very trainable on it, and so much of it is common sense.
Are you recording this?
But many of the approaches that we use are uncommon. Just like we call them uncharacteristic strategies, like when Nixon went to China, uncharacteristic strategy. When Carter got Sadat and Begin to say, okay, we're all three of our heads to say we're going to suspend our work, turn it over to somebody else for 10 days, and solve this problem. That's pretty uncharacteristic. Well, bringing in voting machines with inmates and is uncharacteristic. Like what's the alternative? Anyway, and that'd be, I mean, it really is one of the best thing about best practices is how do you push the envelope? See what I don't, we're talking about negotiations most, but I have a real problem with the new breed of mediator now. They come in and they're very uncomfortable dealing with conflict. So the first thing they do is separate the parties. And then they shuttle. And I've seen them do things like, Mike, that's the dumbest case I ever had. You have no merits whatsoever. I'm surprised you even got here. They're going to take you to the cleaners. It's stupid, And they go in there and they tell you the same thing like that. And you end up with a mediator settlement on that. It's just total manipulation. It's just nothing honest. And when I mediate, I do take caucuses. And they say, well, Bill, do you think you'll accept my proposal? I said, well, let's go and find out. Well, why don't you go in and ask them? I said, no, it's your proposal, And so do you think they'll accept it? They will or they won't. Seems to me like you're really wondering. It sounds to me like you're hesitant. Do you think they'll accept it? Well, do you want to change it? And they usually change it. I mean,
So you're really big on the Socratic method.
It is.
Yeah.
We call it reality testing, but we just
Yeah.
ask the questions.
Yeah.
And the guy that's really good at it is Bob Barry. You met him briefly over at PLU. I'm amazed with how he works with the warlords or anybody else, and you look at him, I'm saying, I wonder if anybody thinks he's dumb. Because he'd say, well, I just, I'm not of your culture. I was just wondering, why would anybody do that? I just don't, help me here. And they explain it, and they say, well, what if it went wrong?
Do you know the work of Milton Erickson in inductive
Yeah.
hypnosis?
Yeah.
He does the same thing.
Yeah, yeah.
He just says, "Well, gee, what did you mean by that?" And what, gosh, I'm not understanding that. And you know, he'll make an analogy to baseball or something, and it seems like it's just going off on a tangent, but oh no, not at all.
Yeah.
A lot of this seems to me intuitive, and while you can say it and I hear what you mean, and it obviously worked, you're talking to some guy and saying, well, what do you think he's going to say? A lot of that is you responding to your read on that guy's clarity, honesty, and purpose. If he isn't there, you can tell. And you're basically providing him an early look at how he's going to come off when you ask him those questions. And I think you're very good at it. I'm not sure it's easy for everybody to pick up on that, but that's...
Well, if I had applied it in my personal life, I'd be a star.
Well, there you go.
You know, it's
See, that's
just,
the problem.